But yes, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're going to read some Higurashi. Because it'll never be over. It's just a fact. It's just a theory. A Higurashi theory. No, I'm excited to sit down and read some. I'm in a reading mood weirdly today. Which is generally not the, especially on a Tuesday. I mean, I do it. I read on Tuesdays. But generally I'm not in as much of a reading mood as I am now. Don't know what it is. Can't explain it. Let's get right into it. We have the investigation team still investigating. I would imagine at some point we're going to get more of a mix of the investigation team and then the, I don't know what to call the others, the school, the students, I assume there's going to be a mixing. We already actually somewhat kind of got that last time. We had Natsumi meeting up with the investigation team led by Oishi, getting a little putting on the pressure as Oishi does. Maybe not the right way of putting it. Oishi getting a little demanding, getting a little yeah. Demanding's probably closer to what I mean to say. And then, of course, we saw Toto. The romantic interest of Natsumi sticking up for her, defending her against the investigation team type deal. So that was basically the deal there. And I assume it's only going to mix more is basically what I think is going to happen. Shout out for the 26,000 month subscription streak. Or not streak, but in total. Thank you so much. Hello to you as well. 26,000 months. It hasn't been a year and a half from Sunday yet. Might as well be. I needed water. My throat. Despite me saying I'm in a very reading mood. That's the word I'm looking for. I feel my throat parched. Need more water. Let's get right into it. Reading time. Monday, July 4th, 1983. If I was smart, I didn't do this when we read the original arcs last year around this time, but if I was smart during the time since this story takes place in the summer months, I would have done something more clever since we're now in the summer months again. Especially since I missed the boat kind of last year during the original arcs. Then I should have done it this year if I knew well, I didn't know it was going to last till this long, let's be honest. I wouldn't have been able to predict that. So really, that's my defense there. Anyway, Monday, July 4th, 1983.
菓子パン1個ってあんたの昼食それだけ?
Alright, we're in the school. We're switching perspectives finally, away from the investigation team. Enough with them. One sweet bun. That's your entire lunch? I wasn't joking around like usual this time. In fact, I said it because I was genuinely worried something had happened. Who knew you'd be playing Higurashi for a year and a half? I know. No one would have predicted, honestly. It would have gone this long. If you would have told me at the beginning after Umineko and I was like, all right, time for Higurashi, which is technically the 8 arcs, it's shorter than Umineko, I think. Technically? Maybe I'm just making that up. If you would have told me at the start of it that I would have still been reading it a year and a half, I would have thought something went horribly wrong, or I lost steam and then like gave up halfway through and then went back to it, or I fell into like a coma and then woke back up and then decided, you know what, after my coma I still want to read more Higurashi. But here we are. I wasn't joking around like usual this time. In fact, I said it because I was genuinely worried something had happened. Huh? Is that weird?
いや、変っていうか、いつものお弁当は？
Well, it's more like what happened to your usual lunch.
おばさんお手製の卵焼きとかミートボールとかはないの？
Don't you normally have your mom's homemade omelets or meatballs or something? Meatballs. Yeah.
今朝お母さん寝坊しちゃって。
Well, Mom overslept this morning.
そうなの？
Oh, really?
ああ、残念。
That's unfortunate.
せっかくわびしくて味気ない購買のパン食のおかずにご賞味させていただこうと期待してたのに。
I was looking forward to having some flavorful side dishes to accent this bland school store bread.
千里ちゃん、せこいよ。
That's petty, Chisato-chan. After saying that with a shocked expression, Natsumi's shoulders drooped. And just then, Tomoko came back from buying a drink at the vending machine.
お待たせ。
Sorry to keep you waiting.
あれ？夏美？
What's that, Natsumi? Then, she sat across from Natsumi and asked about the same thing I did earlier. And her follow-up answer was the same as before.
へえ。なんか珍しいね。夏美がお弁当持ってこないなんて。
Wow, it's not like you did not bring a full lunch, Natsumi. I don't think I ever talked about this, but it's a thought I've had since we've introduced to these characters. I'm not a fan of the shade of color for their school outfits. There's something weirdly off-putting to me, and I can't place why. It's like creamy orange color, like peach. I don't know. Just don't like it. Doesn't sit with me for some reason. I don't know why. And I've had that thought for a while, but I never knew how to voice it, and I still don't know how to voice it clearly, but it looks vaguely like the color of shit. What? Oh, man. Sure, the brown part. Yeah, okay, so it's a weird... No. Here's the thing. Now that you explain it a bit more, I kind of see what you're saying. See, it's a weird off-putting color because if you look at it... Okay, if you look at the collar and then the fabric, it looks like it's a creamy orange. But I do think if you start at the bow part and then you go to the main part color, it looks more brown. It's like, I don't want to say an optical illusion, but to me, it looks more very extremely light orange if you go from collar to here, but it is the brown. It does give off a weird light brown if you start looking at the tie and then go down. Yeah, it's weird. It's just weird combos. And maybe it's not even shouldn't be orange. It's more like, this is like an ambery orange kind of. I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I probably wouldn't go first to the color of shit, but I don't necessarily 100% disagree. Wow, it's not like you to not bring a full lunch, Natsumi.
ひょっとして初めてじゃないの？
Is this the first time that's happened?
意外。
You said it mostly for shock effect. Fair enough. Yup, how unexpected.
完璧超人のおばさんでも失敗するんだね。
Even her perfect superhuman mom can fail.
これは新発見だ。
This is breaking news. After an awkward laugh, Natsumi opened her bag of bread. Is that an apple Danish? I hate to say it, but she must have no eye for flavor. She picked one of the top 5 worst items on the menu. Damn. Don't shit talk apple danishes.
とっと
That's crazy.
いけない
Whoops. Better keep that to myself. Somehow I managed to avoid speaking the words in my head. Tomoko would be able to roll with it, but Natsumi would take it really hard. But even so.
けどさ夏美
But Natsumi,
パン1個ってのはいくらなんでも少ないんじゃない
is one piece of bread really enough?
そう
Isn't it?
あんまり食べたことがないからどれくらいなら大丈夫かなってわからなくて
I don't normally have this, so I don't know how much is enough.
いやそれでもこれは少ないよ
No, even so, this is still really small.
ねえフードファイターのたまこさん
Right, competitive eater Tomoko-san? Alright, Chisato needs to calm the fuck down. Honestly,
誰が大食いだ
dial it down slightly. Who are you calling a glutton?
でもまあちょっち少ないかもね
Well, it might be a bit too small.
私買いすぎたからお裾分けしよっか
I bought a little too much, so would you like some of mine?
いいの
Huh? Is that really okay?
たまこちゃんありがとう
Thanks, Tomoko-chan. Natsumi accepted Tomoko's Castella cheesecake with a smile. As expected, Tomoko gave Natsumi the most popular pastry. If it were me, I might have given her something fishy and watched her reaction, i.e. letting her test it for poison.
だけど夏美お昼とはいえちゃんとご飯は食べないとさ
But Natsumi, you need to make sure you're eating enough for lunch.
うん
Yeah,
そうなんだけどちょっと
that's true, I guess.
出なきゃ
Otherwise,
出るとこ育たないよ
how will you ever grow bigger? Chisato. Chisato needs to be stopped. Natsumi got a piece of bread lodged in her throat as she writhed at that sore subject. Then she rushed to grab a sip of milk and stared me down with her half-crying eyes.
千里ちゃ
Chisato-chan,
ん出るとこって何がどこが
what do you mean grow bigger? Where? You know what she's saying.
いやそりゃ
It's terrible.
健全な男女交際のことですけどね
Well, it's necessary for a healthy male-female relationship.
また健全かい
It's healthy, you say?
だいたい千里あんたこの前はツルペッタンはステータスだなんてド派手に宣言してたでしょうが
But, Chisato, weren't you the one who declared flat chests our status symbol the other day?
そりゃ言ったことは言ったけどさあんまり物足りないのもどうかなってさ
Well, I said what I said, but I wonder if that's enough now.
あいつも一応男だからね
At the end of the day, he's still a guy, right?
それって東堂くんのこと
Are you talking about Toto-kun? As soon as Akira became the subject of the conversation, Natsumi turned bashful. She's really such an earnest girl.
他に誰かいるの
Who else is there?
もしかして夏美もう別の男に
Maybe Natsumi has already moved on to another man.
そんなわけないでしょ
No way!
私はだって
After all, After waving her hands in denial, Natsumi turned red when her real intention almost came out. Ah, what a cutie. What a lucky guy he is to be loved by someone like her.
まあまあ
The love
アキラちゃん
triangle.
はそういうのって気にしないと思うよ
The love triangle is reopened. I kind of forgot that the love triangle was slightly explored in the last thing, but now that that line was said, I'm like, oh yeah, that was sort of a thing that was implied. How unfortunate. Now, I'm sure Akira-chan doesn't care about that at all.
だから安心しなさい
So please relax.
本当
Really?
ほらデッサンとかで女体はゲップが出るほど見てるでしょ
You know, he sees female bodies for his sketches so much that they must sicken him, right?
むしろ夏美のようなスレンダーさんの方が普段見慣れてなくて新鮮かも
If anything, he's not used to seeing a slender figure like yours, so it feels fresh.
おいおいたまこさんやそりゃフォローになってないでしょうが
Hey, Tamako-san, that's not how you back someone up.
そりゃまあ前に見たモデルさんはアザラシもどきのすごいおばさんだったから ちょっとアキラには同情したけど。
Though yeah, last model of his I saw was this lady that looked like a sea lion. It made me feel sorry for Akira for a moment. Tough.
例えるなら私たちが油切ったおっさんをデッサンするようなものだからね。
I guess for us it'd be like having to draw a rough sketch of a greasy old man.
もはや人間として見ない方が精神安定上いいのかも。
At that point, it might be better for your mental health to convince yourself you're not drawing a human being.
おいおい、そこまで言うか。
Come on, isn't that going a little far?
ねえ、夏美はどう思う？
Hey, Natsumi, what do you think? I said that while patting her on the shoulder, but Natsumi was slow to react. When I gave her a puzzled stare, Natsumi was looking downward with a troubled expression on her face.
どうしたの夏美？
What's wrong, Natsumi? Huh?
東堂くんって女の人のモデルをそんなにいつも見てるのかなって。
Oh, I was just wondering if Toto-kun really does spend a lot of time staring at female models.
いや、そりゃそうでしょう。
Chisato is just not good for Natsumi's mental health. I gotta be honest. We know and we've seen now. We have examples of Natsumi being just a fragile-minded, unfortunately, but very self-conscious type person to the point where she does terrible things to herself and others. Chisato does not help and is just there to stoke the flames. Very unfortunate. Well, yeah, that's normal.
あいつ美術の特待だから、デッサンは漢字の書き取りみたいな基本授業だし。
He's prioritizing his art. So for him, those sorts of rough drafts are as standard as us writing kanji.
むしろやってないという方がおかしいよ。
In fact, it'd be weirder if he wasn't doing that.
そうだよ。
Right, of course.
授業なら仕方ない。
Oh god. If it's her class, it can't be helped. Chisato, look what you've done! Right then, for just a moment, through the space between Natsumi and her desk, I could see both her hands down on her knees, trembling. Natsumi's hands. They were balled into fists, clenched tight enough to show her veins. Almost like she was about to tear her skirt apart.
夏美、あのさ。
Hey, Natsumi?
アキラちゃんだ。
Oh, it's Akira-chan.
おーい。
Hey! With awful timing, Tomoko noticed Akira walking in the hall and interrupted me to call out to him. As usual, Akira had a dull expression on his face as he stopped to look our way.
ちょうどいいところに来た。
You've come at just the right time.
アキラちゃん、夏美が呼んでるよ。
Akira-chan, Natsumi was calling for you.
え
Huh?
ちょっとタマコちゃん。
Oh, wait a minute, Tomoko-chan.
夏美だって気になるでしょ。
You're curious too, aren't you, Natsumi?
なら本人に直接お聞きなさいな。
In that case, go ask him directly. Tomoko urged Natsumi on with a teasing smile, while Natsumi continued to panic. It seemed like Tomoko hadn't noticed the state Natsumi was in up until just now. Though that said, now I'm wondering if I was just seeing things.
まあいいか。
Oh well, whatever.
ほらほら、アキラもそんなとこぼさっと突っ立ってないで、こっち来なさいな。
Come on, Akira. Don't just stand there. Come over here. Huh? Hey! Akira just doesn't want to be bothered. Akira hesitated to enter and just stood there staring at Natsumi's face, so I grabbed his hand and dragged him into the classroom. Then I walked over to the chair and was sitting in earlier and plopped his butt down. Oh, hold on, Chisa.
まあまあまあ、遠慮するなよ、アキラくん。
Come on, Akira-kun. Don't hold back.
夏美がさ、あんたがどれだけデッサンで女性の体を見慣れているか、ぜひとも聞いておきたいんだってさ。
And somebody was just dying to ask you how familiar I was seeing the female body for your sketches. What? Chisato-chan.
そんなこと私一言も。
I never said a word about that.
ん？
Hmm?
じゃあ、夏美は気にならないの？
Well, Natsumi, does that mean you're not curious?
あ、その。
Well... Natsumi bashfully turned away as her face turned red. That reaction left Akira even more confused, and he blushed as well.
いや、
It's not like that.
人物デッサンといっても、俺は風景画が中心だから、あんまり参加してないぞ。
Even though they tell me to draw people, I don't do it very much because I prefer drawing landscapes.
それは、1年生の頃は強制参加だったから、2回。いや、3回ほど出席したけど。
Well, it was a compulsory class in freshman year, so I attended 2 or maybe 3 sessions.
進級してからは一度も出てないというか。本当だぞ。
But I haven't done it since I've advanced. Really. Oh no, he's protesting too much kind of situation.
そうなんだ。
Is that so?
いやさ、アキラ。
No, Akira.
そこまで詳細に言えとは頼んでないんだが。
No one asked you to give that much detail.
しかも、ものすっごく言い訳臭いのはどういうわけだ。
And why are you talking like you're making a bunch of excuses?
それは、
That's,
やっぱりちゃんと説明しておかなきゃ、君吉が不安があるかなって。
I figured Kimiyoshi would feel uneasy unless I gave her a full explanation.
そうなの？
Is that so?
ごめんね、東堂くん。変な心配させて。
Sorry for making you worry, Toto-kun.
いや、いいって。
No, it's fine. Yeah. Professional shit stirrer Chisato.
はい
は
はいい、ごちそう
ご
さま。
ちそうさま。
Alright, that's enough. Tamako-chan and I clapped our hands together in unison with a mix of shock and awe. Natsumi and Kira bashfully looked at each other, then fell silent.
まあ、もう見慣れた光景だけどね。
Well, this is a familiar sight by now. Tamako and I have been spreading information to the class to let everyone know that Natsumi and Akira have started dating, and it's already become a well-known fact. Both of them were the type to be slow about moving forward. Tamako suggested we avoid making a lot of noise about it right away to avoid hurting them. Of course, some of the classmates reacted strongly, but for the most part, they treated it like a familiar sight.
じゃあ、あとはアキラに任せて。
Well, we'll leave the rest to you, Akira.
私たちは退散しますか。
This is our cue to exit.
ごめんね、夏美、あきらちゃん。
Sorry, Natsumi,
私
Akira-chan.
たちこれから職員室で用事があるの。
We have business to attend to in the teacher's lounge.
おい、ちさ、タマ。
Hey, Chisa, Tama. After saying that, Tamako and I grabbed our lunches and stood up to make space for Natsumi and Akira. We ignored the nervous voice calling out to us as we exited the classroom. With friends like that...
ちょっち強引だったかな。
I wonder if we were too pushy there. I leaned against the rooftop fence and took a bite out of my bread while turning toward Tamako, standing beside me. She delicately sat down on the bench and stabbed the straw into her milk carton.
まあいいんじゃないかな。
Well, I don't think it's a problem.
あれくらいお膳立てしないと二人ともなかなか一緒に昼食をとったりしないしね。
But without our meddling, the two of them would never eat lunch together.
いや、まったく。あの二人には苦労させられるよ。
Seriously, those two are making us break our backs.
不器用カップルというか、お子ちゃまカップルというか。
Are they more of an awkward couple or a childish couple?
それでも当人たちは幸せみたいだよ。
Even so, they both seem really happy, don't they?
あきらちゃんは愛想を振りまくのが苦手みたいだから、夏美みたいに純粋に慕ってくれる子はきっと可愛いんだろうね。
Akira-chan has always struggled to act properly around other people, so pairing him with a pure-hearted girl like Natsumi who simply adores him is pretty cute, huh?
ええ、純粋でなくてすいませんね。
Well, sorry for not being pure-hearted.
まだ心残りはある？
Are you still feeling regret? I hesitated to respond to Tomoko's question and looked up to the sky. There were only a few clouds in the sky. It was certainly lovely weather. Felt a little sweaty thanks to the humidity, so it felt it might rain soon. Mamoru-senpai and Tomoko were probably the only ones who knew my true feelings. Tomoko in particular hadn't said anything about Natsumi and Akira's current relationship, but she still had mixed feelings about it.
後悔しない？
You don't have any regrets?
さあね。
Who can say?
一度も伝えずに不先輩なんてらしくないよ。
It's not like you to lose a fight without even saying a thing.
うるさいな。
Shut up.
千里がアキラちゃんのこと特別に思ってたのは知ってる。
Chisato, I know how much Akira-chan means to you.
それこそこの高校に入ったのだって。
That's why you chose this high school.
やめて。
Stop it. Stop. Snap. Even I was surprised how strong and cold my voice sounded as I interrupted Tomoko. We've already discussed this story countless times, and I've already decided that there can only be one conclusion. So, it's the part where Tomoko usually apologizes and changes the subject. However, for some reason, she's not backing down today.
応援しててなんだけどさ、
I'm supporting them,
アキラちゃんと夏美は合わないような気がする。
but I don't feel like Akira-chan and Natsumi belong together. Damn, it's too much, man. It's too, there's too much.
え？
Huh?
さっきアキラちゃんのデッサンの話が出た時、夏美の反応を見たでしょ。
You saw how Natsumi reacted earlier when we were talking about Akira-chan's drawings, right?
絵描きにとっては別に当たり前のことなのに、あ
That's
の子は全然割り切って考えられない。
that's perfectly commonplace for artists, but she can't see it that way.
今のままじゃこの先不安だよ。
I'm worried about how things will go if left as is. So, Tomoko noticed that change in Natsumi after all.
最近気づいたんだけど、夏美って独占欲が強いよね。
Recently, I've noticed Natsumi has a strong desire to monopolize his affection.
もっと悪い言い方をすれば嫉妬深い。
Or
す
to
ご
put,
く
or to put it less kindly, she's extremely jealous.
今はまだ慣れてないから表には出してこないけど、将来あんな感じでアキラちゃんを束縛し続けたら、
She's not used to it yet, so she's keeping it under wraps, but if she continues to constrain Akira-chan like that in the future,
きっとアキラちゃん息が詰まってくるんじゃないかな。
I'm sure it would make him feel smothered.
いい加減にしなさいよ、タマコ。
Cut it out already, Tomoko. I rebuked Tomoko, unable to keep turning a blind eye. She usually goes the other way around, doesn't it?
だいたい夏美の悪口は言うなって、いつも私に注意してるのはあんたでしょ？
Weren't you the one who warned me not to badmouth Natsumi?
そのあんたが夏美の悪口を言うなんて、一体どういうことよ？
But now, you're the one saying awful things about her.
勘違いしないで、千里。
Don't get me wrong, Chisato.
私が夏美に対しての言い方をあんたに注意したのは、
The reason I warned you about that
あ
isn't
の子が
because...
大事だからじゃない。
The reason I warned you about that isn't because she's important.
あんたが誰よりも可愛がって大事にしたいと思っている子だから。
She's the one you dote on and want to value more than anyone else.
こういう言い方の方が好かれるよって、あんたへのフォローのつもりだったんだよ。
So I was trying to back you up by telling you to talk that way so she'd like you more.
ちょっと。
Hold on.
本音で言えばさ、今の夏美だったら私個人的には好きになれない。
To tell the truth, the way Natsumi's been acting lately, I really don't like her much.
前に聞いた
Yikes.
ひなみ沢出身者の噂も気になるけど、夏美はそのことずっと私たちに隠してるじゃない。
I've heard rumors that she was originally from Hinamizawa, but she's kept that hidden from us all this time.
まあ、そうだけど。でも。
Well, that may be true, but it was so shocking. I don't think I've ever seen Tomoko say she hated someone like this.
相談してくれたらいつでも力になるつもりなのに。
I'd be willing to help her out if she ever so much as asked.
なんだかあの子、私たちのこと全然信用してくれてないように感じるの。
And yet, it kind of feels like she doesn't trust us at all.
それが私、腹が立つ。
And that infuriates me.
他にも千里の本当の気持ちも考えないでアキラちゃんと仲良くやってるのも不愉快。
Besides, it disgusts me how she's getting closer to Akira-chan without ever considering how you truly feel. Oh, teenage girl drama.
そんな見せかけだけの友情をなんで貴重に思わなきゃいけないのよ。
Why do you have to value such a pretense of friendship?
タマコ、あんた。
Tomoko, you... I was dumbfounded. I had no words, so I just stared at Tomoko. I think I get it. Tomoko is really upset right now. Yeah, she's right. It's time to stop the deception and be honest. There's a small flame of resentment against Natsumi in the bottom of my heart that had been smoldering for a while. I've also heard about the great Hinamizawa disaster and all the strange incidents the people from that village have caused. In fact, I heard that one of the patients at the care and welfare center in my father's hospital was involved in an incident where he returned home. So I understood the prejudice against people from Hinamizawa. I was scared and restless about it too.
でも、だからだ。だからこそ。
But that's it. That's exactly why I wanted Natsumi to tell me the truth. Mamoru-senpai told me that Natsumi was from the town next to Hinamizawa, and the fact that she's been so tired recently and worrying a lot more about things on her own than she used to is evidence to support that theory. But in that case, why won't she talk to us about it? Why does she insist on keeping these awful feelings bottled up? Is it because she doesn't like us anymore? Does she think we'd stop being her friends if we found out? But why doesn't she realize that's the most painful betrayal towards us? Weren't we friends because we trusted each other, had a deep understanding, and weren't trying to use each other for our own benefit? My frustration boiled over. I suddenly wanted to smack something. Don't smack. Don't smack, you're the friend. Until now, I've been suppressing these feelings out of guilt for Natsumi. No, it's worse than that. I tried to pretend I never had these feelings to begin with. I'm sure I brought this upon myself. Natsumi's been hurting all this time and I never noticed, so I believe this is my atonement. It was wrong of me to get upset with Natsumi in the first place. But that's wrong. That was wrong. I was just running away from these negative feelings.
ねえ、タマコ。
Hey, Tomoko.
何？
What is it?
もしも、夏美がひなみ沢出身者だったとしたら。
If we find out that Natsumi really is from Hinamizawa,
あんた、どうする？
what will you do?
そうだね。
Right.
誰かからそれを知ったら、多分私はあの子と絶交する。
If someone came along and showed me proof of that, I would probably have to cut off my friendship with her. Damn. The prejudice. A definitive answer. Tomoko declared that in a cold tone with no hesitation. And then?
でも、
However.
え？
Huh?
もし夏美から打ち明けられて相談されたら、私はあの子を守ると思う。
Assuming yourself came to me and chose to tell me the truth, I think I'd want to protect her.
誰が何て言おうと、私の大切な親友だからね。
Because no matter what anyone said, she'd still be my precious best friend.
タマコ。
Tomoko. Hearing Tomoko's cheerful answer, I suddenly had to look away and think it over. And what would I do? Protect Natsumi or...
あれ？
What's that? It's not like I came here to eavesdrop. Tomoko said she had things to do, so we parted ways after leaving the rooftop. And hoping to give my dilemma some more thought, I stopped by the vending machines to grab a coffee. But, by chance, I could hear a conversation between Natsumi and Akira right over there, so turned my back toward them and listened in.
やっぱり気持ち悪いって思った。
You really did think it was creepy, didn't you? Akira remained silent, and didn't respond to Natsumi's question in any way. However, his eyes wandered erratically and he clenched his fists. But thanks to my long history with Akira, I recognized his habit of taking a long time to choose his words when trying to say something important.
そうだよね。
It's true, isn't it?
気持ち悪いよね。あんなの。
I mean, it's creepy, isn't it? However, Natsumi clearly wasn't aware of how Akira handled situations like this, so she made assumptions and continued speaking. Since I was listening in with my back turned, I couldn't see the expression on her face.
家に気味の悪い魔除けを飾り付けたり、変なお経を唱えたり。
Those creepy talismans decorating the house. Those weird prayers.
それにおかしな事件を起こして殺人を犯す人たち。
And those strange incidents where people suddenly commit murders.
気持ち悪いよね。
it makes you feel uncomfortable, right?
私だってそんな人嫌だ。近くにも寄りつきたくないよ。
I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to keep that as far away as possible.
君吉
Kimiyoshi,
たたりとかお社様とか
the curse, and Oyashiro-sama.
バカバカしい。
It's all ridiculous.
なんでひなみ沢の出身だからってそんな変な人ばかりが。
Why are all the people from Hinamizawa such weirdos?
いなくなればいい。
We're all a bunch of weirdos. They should just disappear.
みんないなくなれば誰にも迷惑もかけなくなって、そして
If they all just disappeared, they wouldn't be bothering anyone anymore. And then...
やめろよ君吉
Stop it, Kimiyoshi. Unwilling to hear any more, Kira grabbed Natsumi by the shoulders to quiet her. Natsumi winced and tensed her body for a moment, but she eventually calmed down a little, with her back still trembling. Then, I could hear a faint sob in Natsumi's voice.
気味の悪い魔除け、変なお経。
Creepy talismans? Weird prayers? Was that another rumor about strange behavior from people from Hinamizawa? Then, maybe the reason Natsumi didn't bring a lunch today is because someone from her family is...
大丈夫だから
Like I said, it's fine.
家のことは誰にも言わない
I won't tell anyone about the house.
クラスの連中だって誰の家かなんて分かっていなかったみたいだし
I don't think the other classmates know whose house it is.
別におまじないをするのはおかしくなんてないだろ
Besides, is it really so strange to put up good luck charms?
俺も野外スケッチでいろんな装飾の神社を見てきたから分かるよ
I've seen all kinds of shrine decorations during my outdoor sketches. It makes sense.
東堂くん。
Todo-kun.
だから気にするなよ
So, don't let it bother you,
俺は分かっているから
because I understand. Liar! Uh-oh. Oh god. Oh no. That instant. Every ounce of my body wanted to scream, but I barely managed to choke it down. Such a powerful voice, with an incredible bloodlust mixed in. That was the first time I'd heard anything like it. The sound of Natsumi roaring like a beast. No, that's not it. Is that girl really Natsumi? Could this really be the timid Natsumi Kimiyoshi that I know? Unbelievable. Rather than some true nature coming out, it seemed like she changed into a completely different creature that only looked the same. I was tormented by that terrifying sensation of discomfort. He's like, And I guess Akira felt the same way. I steadied my breathing and calmed my heartbeat, then turned to face them again. Akira was standing there with a look of shock on his face and his eyes wide open. You really fucked it up, Natsumi. Eventually, Natsumi gasped as though she'd come to her senses. Then she ran past Akira's side and rushed into the school building. But Akira continued standing there, dumbfounded. I was standing all alone, having completely lost the opportunity to reveal myself.
もし夏美から打ち明けられて相談されたら、私はあの子を守ると思う。
If Natsumi herself came to me and chose to tell me the truth, I think I'd want to protect her.
誰が何て言おうと、私の大切な親友だからね。
Because no matter what anyone said, she'd still be my precious best friend. Tamako, the Natsumi you were talking about, that was your best friend Natsumi Kimiyoshi. But if it wasn't the Natsumi who was your best friend, what would you do? And what would I do? I don't know. I don't know what's right anymore. Well, shit. It's all going to shit. It's all happening. Yes, exactly. It has been established that this is a continuation of Rika death. Career aspirations 2. I forgot that there was a 1 maybe. Wait, huh?
アキラも陸王大にしたの？
You're going to Riku University too, Akira?
お
Yeah.
う、なんかまずかったか？
What? Is that bad?
いや、まずくはないけどさ。
No, there's nothing wrong with it, but certainly, Rikuo University had a recently established art department, but it didn't have much history to it. Also, the instructors didn't have a lot. That's why there's a missing of name recognition. So I heard only those who were really curious or less skilled aimed for it.
あんたの腕と実績なら東京の美大だって引く手あまたでしょ。
With your skills and achievements, couldn't you get into the Tokyo College of the Arts?
今の高校みたいに奨学金とか特待生待遇とか
With all those honors and special scholarships like you've gotten at this school,
いい先生もそっちの方が多いし、名を売る機会も環境も格段の違いなのに、なんでそっちにしなかったのさ。
there are also a lot of great teachers there, and it would be a much better environment to get your name out there, so why not go that route? No, don't worry. Oishi and his brash tactics will solve the case this time. Don't worry. He's got it this time. Just put all your faith in Oishi. He'll solve it. He's got it this time. He'll do it.
別に名前を売るために絵を描いてるわけじゃないしさ。
I'm not really interested in drawing pictures to get my name out there.
それに
Plus,
それに
いや、なんでもねえよ。
no, it's nothing. He quickly shut his mouth to avoid answering, but once I saw how red his face was turning, I figured it out. Come to think of it, I recently learned that the school that girl was aspiring to, Misaki University, was a sister school to Rikuo University, and as part of that relationship, I hear that some of their general education classes are conducted together. So naturally, that would increase our opportunities to see each other face to face.
しかしまあ、あんたもベタ惚れだね。
Well now, sounds like you've really fallen in love.
いくら告白したてで不安だからって自分の将来まで相手の都合で決めなくてもいいんじゃない？
I know you've only just confessed and you're still nervous, but you don't have to let her circumstances dictate your future, right? Right, yeah, exactly. That's a good point. What?
別に俺は君吉のことで大学を決めたわけじゃ。
That's not it. College I picked has nothing to do with Kimiyoshi.
私は一言も夏美のことは言ってなかったんだけど。
But I didn't say anything about Natsumi, did I? Way to shoot yourself in the foot, Akira-kun. What a simple-minded guy.
あ、でも
Oh, but... A thought suddenly came to me. If Natsumi knew about this, what would she think? Kira's choice to enroll at Rikuo University didn't have much impact on my decision. Rather, it was the other way around. And even if we're in the same university, the Department of Arts and the Pharmacology Department are essentially completely different schools. But I advised Natsumi to set Rikuo University aside. It was obviously a poor choice given her current grades, and unlike my family, I heard that her family wouldn't allow her to aim for any universities except the ones where she could pass the entrance exams on the first try.
ねえ、アキラ。
Hey, Akira?
なんだ？
What's up?
そのさ、アキラが陸王大に行くって決めたこと、夏美には話した？
Well, have you told Natsumi yet that you're planning to go to Rikuo University?
いや、まだだけど。それが？
No, not yet. Is that a problem?
うん。ちょっとさ、事情があって。
Yeah, there might be a slight issue.
あの子にはそのこと、まだ黙っててくれるかな？
Could you keep this quiet from her for now?
は？
Huh? Kira didn't understand what I was getting at first and stared blankly, but after hearing my explanation, he seemed convinced. Akira didn't want there to be any strange misunderstandings either.
わかったよ。しばらく黙っておく。
Understood. I'll keep it quiet for a while.
でも、なんだか隠し事してるみたいで、いい気分じゃないよな。
But it seems like I'm hiding something and I don't feel good about that.
おうおう、えらく真面目だね。
Oh my, so serious.
今からそんなんじゃ浮気した時に一発でバレるよ。
With an attitude like that, she'd find out instantly if you ever cheated on her.
浮気なんてするかよ。
I'd never cheat on her. Anyway, we'll try talking to Natsumi about it when the time is right. And we'll emphasize the fact that Misaki and Rikyo are sister schools. There's nothing to feel guilty about here. Once we explain everything properly, surely Natsumi will. But, is that really how it'll play out? No, of course not. This is Higurashi. Things never work out the way the best case scenario. It's always the worst case scenario. We're Higurashi guys. We always blow things out of proportion. I hit the wrong button. Tuesday, July 5th, 1983.
すみませんね。
Sorry,
お手間を取らせてしまいまして。
I bothered you long enough.
いえいえ、たくさん買ってくれるお客さんは大歓迎だから。
Nonsense! Paying customers are always welcome. The old woman at the station stalls smiled at me as she packed the newspapers and magazines into bags. I reciprocated with an awkward smile, then pulled a 10,000 yen bill from my wallet and placed it in the money scoop.
それにしても最近は雨が降ったり止んだりで鬱陶しいよね。
At any rate, the rain we've been getting recently has been such a bother.
洗濯物を片付ける暇もないよ。
I haven't had the time to do the laundry.
そうですね。
Indeed.
梅雨時ですから。
It's the rainy season after all.
台風も近づいてるっていうじゃない？
They say there's a typhoon coming, right?
やだね。上陸しなければいいんだけど。
How terrible. Might have to head to high ground.
ええ。まったく。
Yeah, absolutely. I faintly nodded, then looked at my wristwatch. I intended it as a polite, silent way of saying, please hurry up, but when I looked back at the old woman, her hands weren't moving any faster.
やれやれ。
Good grief. I give up. I thought it'd be too much trouble to track down a bookstore in an unfamiliar town, so I decided to make a quick stop at a shop in the train station, but it might have been faster to go all the way to the bookstore after all. Out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly noticed the headlines on the tabloids hanging in the rack. Sitting right next to summer high school baseball issue, I saw a magazine with huge text taking up half the page that read Chief Cabinet Secretary Okuno resigns. I'm relieved that the story finally went public, but the reason for his resignation still remained a mystery. And though my investigation was intended to shine a light on that mystery, it was proving extremely difficult.
ところでお客さん、ひょっとしてあんたも出版社の人？
By the way, sir, are you with a publishing company too?
どうしてですか？
Huh? What makes you say that?
先週の金曜日にもいたからね。
It happened last Friday.
ここでいろんな雑誌と新聞をまとめて買っていった人がさ。
Someone came here and bought a bunch of newspapers and magazines together.
そう。なんですか？
Oh, is that so? I suddenly caught my breath, then leaned toward the shopkeeper. Someone was bulk purchasing magazines and newspapers from the shop, just like I'm doing.
どんな人ですか？
What kind of person was it?
顔はあんまり覚えてないけどね。スーツを着た女の人だったよ。
I can't really remember her face, but it was a woman in a suit.
こっちが話しかけても手帳に何か書き込んでて反応はほとんどなしでさ。
Even when I tried talking to her, she didn't react at all, and I just kept on scribbling in her notebook.
ちょっと冷たい感じだったね。
She gave off a cold presence.
どうして出版関係の方だと？
Why do you think she was with a publishing company?
手に持ってた封筒に出版社の文字がちらっと見えたからね。
I caught a glimpse of an envelope in her hands that had the name of a publisher written on it.
どこの出版社だったかな。
Which publisher was it?
気になるライバル会社の動向でも調べてるのかいって言ったら、そんなところですって言って、あとはたんまり。
I asked her, are you looking into trends with rival companies? But all she said was something like that and didn't speak another word.
出版社。
Publisher.
だからあんたもそうかなってさ。
So I figured you're one of them too.
違うのかい？
Am I wrong?
いえ。私は。
No, I'm... What a nosy old lady. I took a moment to calm my restless heart, then I tipped my hat and answered her.
実は私、俳句が趣味なんですよ。
Actually, I'm a haiku writer. 575. Woo!
手当たり次第に投稿したものですから、どれかに掲載されていないかと思いましてね。
I've posted my work to several sources, so I was curious to see if any of them got published.
へえ、俳句を。
Wow, a haiku writer.
はい、これで全部だよ。
Alright, all done. Here you go.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
あ、お金はこれで足りますか？
Oh, was that enough money? After finally receiving my 2 bags filled with newspapers, I quickly asked her to bring the conversation to a close. The shopkeeper punched the numbers into an old calculator to determine the total, then handed me my change.
毎度あり。
Thank you for your patronage.
乗ってるといいね、あんたの作品。
I hope your work gets published.
え
Right.
え、ダメだったら次も頑張ってみますよ。
Even if I have no luck this time, I'll keep trying.
それでは。
Well, alright then. I smiled and gave her a bow, then turned the other way. The moment I turned my back, I felt a cold shiver run through my entire body.
ただの偶然。それとも。
Was that just coincidence? Or maybe... I stopped in my tracks and thought about asking the shopkeeper more about that woman, but I immediately decided against it. First off, even if I asked for a physical description, there was no way I'd be finding her in a city this big. Besides, she could have been lying when she implied she was a reporter.
しかし、私と同じ。
But... the same as me? I might be stressing over nothing, so I'll just file that away in the back of my mind for the time being. There's not much else I can do about it now. I took a few magazines out of the bag and began to read them while waiting on the train platform. All the magazines had headlines about the Great Hinamizawa disaster and huge text to draw the reader's eye.
呪われた村、ひなみ沢の悲劇。
A cursed village. The tragedy of Hinamizawa.
未曾有の自然災害は鬼のたたり。
Unprecedented natural disaster caused by the curse of demons. Huh. But despite their catchy titles, the articles themselves contain mediocre content. They contain specious analogies, slippery slope arguments, and strained explanations from experts I'd never heard of. Anyone with an education would rightfully laugh at this drivel. Plus, even though the article cited information obtained from a Hinamizawa stakeholder, they didn't identify the interviewee, which made me doubt they even interviewed anyone at all. Besides, I've experienced firsthand how difficult it can be to get answers out of these stakeholders. Another missing word. I don't mean to insult their integrity, but I can't imagine their sources have provided any more information than ours have. I don't know if this feels like something I brought up a while back, but I don't know what context it would be. But I feel like I definitely had this conversation on some Higurashi stream recently. But this is a lot similar to like when fucking in Umineko, when the story of the Rokinjima island family tragedy happens, and then like everyone's stories go like wild and everything. Oh, I probably mentioned it during the arc that you just mentioned in chat a little while ago with the other people. I probably brought it up then, where it's like, oh, it's like the thing happens, and then it's like just people run wild with the story and have a bunch of theories and everything. It's like very similar in a way. No real point to me bringing that up, but it's good that I remember exactly why I was bringing it up prior, because it's a similar situation in that arc. Whereas like a bunch of tabloids and stories were written about the actual disaster and all that. I don't mean to insult their integrity, but I can't imagine their sources have provided any more information than ours here.
こうなると、報道というより、むしろ創作だな。
They're not covering the news so much as inventing it.
そうなんじゃない。
Seriously. It's not just my sympathy for Hinamizawa that's making me frustrated either. It's also because this feels like the wrong approach to reporting, ethically speaking. Gathering reliable evidence and deriving logical conclusions from it, and then accurately communicating that information to the public in detail, that was supposed to be the obligation imposed on journalism. Nonetheless, everything they've written about Hinamizawa has been shallow, sensationalized material haphazardly thrown together to sell issues. Perhaps it was born from a desire to make the rest of us feel more sense of security about how it had nothing to do with us. But I couldn't help but feel resentment toward their callous lack of responsibility.
低俗なことだ。
Disgusting. Disgusting! And that's not all. Convenience store magazine racks, train station stops, bookstores, No matter where I went, headlines about Hinamizawa and the Great Disaster were constantly hanging over my head. On top of that, their overstated designs and exaggerated language reminded me of the bizarre decorations I saw at the Hachikama and Kimiyoshi houses.
それにしても2000人の生贄か
Even so, 2,000 people sacrificed?
気軽に書いてくれる
How can they so casually write something like that? Since they have no personal connection to the dead, they just see it as a number that makes their articles more enticing. They're not even considering that every one of those 2,000 people was a person with their own thoughts and dreams. Eventually, local train heading my direction entered the station and came to a stop. Passengers spilled out as the doors opened. After the crowd dispersed, I got on the train and rested my back against the closed door on the opposite side. I noticed an abundance of advertisements hanging in the crowded car, and when I spotted the name of a certain magazine among them, I closed my eyes in frustration and decided not to open them until I reached my destination. After return to Kageboushi Station, I entered Conference Room 3, the room Chief Inspector Minai reserved for us as a safe haven. Inside the room, I found Oishi-san sipping tea while looking over a magazine spread out on the table in front of him. Next to his hand, I saw an ashtray overflowing with a mountain of ashes. Then, Oishi-san crushed another cigarette butt in the pile. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were bloodshot. After seeing that, I realized that he'd never made it back to the hotel last night.
おはようございます
Good morning.
徹夜ですか
Were you up all night?
ああ、おはようさんです。
Ah, good morning.
ちょいと気になることがありましたのでね。
Yeah, I had something on my mind.
おや
Oh my. As soon as he looked up at my face, Oishi-san quizzically tilted his head.
どうしました赤坂さん。
What's wrong, Akasuka-san?
朝っぱらからなんだかご機嫌斜めのようですね。
You seem like you're in a bad mood this morning.
いい気分にはなれませんよ
It's hard to be in a good mood.
これを見てください
Please take a look at this. After saying that, I moved 2 chairs out of the way and sat the newspapers and magazines I bought from the shop right in front of Oishi-san. Weekly magazines, morning newspapers, tabloids, gossip magazines, women's magazines, roughly 20 different periodicals in total.
ほうほう。
Oh?
これはずいぶん買い込みましたね。
You bought a lot of these, huh?
何々
What might there be? Oishi-san picked up a book and opened it, then carefully looked through the large headings in the table of contents. And then he quickly began to read the articles written within.
怪奇寒村2000人の死。
Mystery. 2,000 dead in secluded village.
深まるガス災害の謎。人災の可能性も。に
Mystery of the gas disaster deepens. Possible human cause?
謎だらけのひなみ沢村。その謎を解き明かす。ですか
And also, Hinamizawa village full of mysteries. Unlock the mystery. Huh?
なるほどなるほど。
I see, I see.
もっとも謎を解くという割に最後は真相は未だに闇の中で終わっています
But for all their talk of solving mysteries, it ends with the truth is still in the dark.
しかも論証はデタラメで根拠がなく真面目に読めば余計に混乱が増すばかり
What's worse, their arguments are completely nonsense and unfounded, so reading it only adds to the confusion.
何が解明だ
Some solution that is. Possible causes for the catastrophe moved away from the initial natural volcanic disaster theory and into absurd national conspiracy theories, a religious group suicide theory, and even an alien invasion. In other words, none of this provided any meaningful information about the Great Hinamizawa disaster.
しかしどれも同じような内容ばかりですね。
But it seems like they all have the same content.
記事を書いているライターは同じ人なんでしょうか。
Maybe all these articles were written by the same person.
さあ
Well,
いずれにしても自分で見て調べたものでないことが一目瞭然です
either way, it's clear they didn't do any first-hand investigation.
金をもらっているプロの記者の仕事とは
I
とて
can't,
も思えませんよ
I can't believe this is the work of professionally paid reporters.
まあそう真面目に考えすぎずに。
Now, I wouldn't take it too seriously.
今時の記者さんは皆さんこんな感じですよ。
It's not just reporters. Everyone is like this at the moment.
足で情報を集めた時代はもう終わり。
The age of gathering information with your own 2 feet is already over.
な
No?
しかしですね、大石さん。
Still, Oishi-san.
ああ、そうそう。
Oh, that's right.
こんな雑誌もあるんですよ。
This magazine right here.
ちょっとご覧になりますか？
Would you care to give it a look? After saying that, Oishi-san showed me the cover of the magazine he was reading before I came in. It was an extremely flashy weekly magazine. When I read the name, I recognized it as one that was sold out at the store I went to.
今世間で一番人気のある週刊誌らしいですよ。
This is the most popular weekly magazine at the moment.
掲載されてる情報が早くて安くて面白い。
The information they publish is quick, cheap, and interesting.
ま、その分取材先から名誉毀損とかなんだのと訴えられてて問題も多いようですがね。
Well, seems like they've run into problems with their interviewees accusing them of libel in exchange, though.
はあ、夏のオカルト特集、
The summer occult feature?
お社様のたたり。
Oishiro-sama's curse? Huh? I caught my breath when I said that sentence, then continued reading the content of the article. The text within wasn't an unsubstantiated occult story or some half-baked urban legend. People from Hinamazawa decorated their homes with eerie ceremonial charms, and they offered prayers while conducting sacrifices and bizarre rituals. And ultimately, several incidents have happened to bystanders in the vicinity of these people. Everything, it was all true.
ちょっと待ってください。
Hold on.
これってまさか。
No way, is this really...
いやいや、私たちの捜査内容がそのまんま掲載されていますよ。
Unfortunately, the content of our investigation seems to have made it into that story.
報道規制をかけてるはずなのに、どうやって入手したんでしょうね。
There's supposed to be press restrictions, so how did they get it?
悪質な情報漏洩じゃないですか。
We must have a terrible information leak.
一体誰がこんなことを。
Who the hell could it be?
さあ、
Beats me.
ただ真偽はともかく、例の一連の事件は一般に公開されていないことを考えれば、警察関係者も裏で一枚噛んでいるかもしれませんね。
It's Oishi. He's just trying to throw you off. He's getting paid extra to leak the information. But the truth of these incidents still hasn't been released to the public, so a member of the police could be behind this.
にしても、開始事件からそれほど経ってもいないのに、惨劇のことまで実に詳しいもんだ。
Seems to have detailed information about these deadly incidents, even though hardly any time has passed since they occurred.
感心している場合ではありませんよ。
Don't sound so impressed.
しかも紙面の足りない分はほとんどライターのいい加減な類推と創作じゃないですか。
Besides, the missing parts in the article are filled with the writer's idiotic analogies and fabrications, right? Not only that, the writer uses careful sentence structure to make it seem like even the lies have a hint of truth. If a person who didn't know the truth read this, there's a substantial possibility they would accept it as fact. People being dumb and have no media literacy? No way. No way. That doesn't sound like real life.
まあ世間の皆さんはそういう話が好きですからね。
Well, everyone over the world enjoys that sort of story.
しかも、オカルト特集っていう組み方が実にあざとい。
And publishing it in the summer occult issue was a pretty sly choice.
噂好きというか、真実よりも刺激を求めたがる層を狙っている上。
Not only did they target the rumor-loving demographic who seeks more stimulation than the truth,
情報に対して正確性を期するという責任から巧妙に逃れている。
but they're also cleverly dodging the responsibility of providing accurate information. Yeah. Plus, it seems that women and children are able to absorb and disseminate this sort of information faster, causing rumors to spread, so its influence can't be ignored. So, what would happen if those demographics learned what happened in Hinamazawa, interpreted those rash remarks and superstitions surrounding it however they liked, then spread that around them?
このままだとひなみ沢出身者に対する否定的なイメージがどんどん広がってしまいます。
As things are now, the negative stigma against people from Hinamazawa will grow even worse.
そうなれば彼らはますます世間からの疎外感を高めて我々の調査に協力することを拒絶するようになるんじゃありませんか。
If that happens, they'll feel even more isolated from the world, and that might make them even less likely to cooperate with our investigation.
あり得る話です。
Possibly.
それにしてもまあ古式にのっとるお社様信仰の厄払いをここまで詳細に書いてみせるとは。
But anyway, to think they'd be able to provide this much detail about the old-fashioned Oishiro-sama rituals.
地元民でもないのによく調べていますよ、この記者さん。
This reporter did a good job finding all that out despite not being a local.
荒川さんっていうんですか？覚えておきましょう。
Looks like their name is Arakawa-san. Let's make a note of that.
私たちとは目的も価値観も全然違うようですがね。
Seems like their motivation and values are completely different from ours. After dejectedly saying that, I spread out the magazine in front of me again. Inside, there were black and white photographs and historical records detailing the chronology of Hinamizawa. Long ago, Hinamizawa was known as Onikafuchi Village, and the villagers allegedly had the blood of demons flowing through their veins. That was a powerful opening sentence from an occult article. In this mysterious village, strange incidents have happened on the same day every year for the past 4 years. 4 years ago, the dam construction supervisor was murdered. 3 years ago, the couple who were the primary supporters of the dam construction died falling from a cliff. Then 2 years ago, the priest of the village shrine, who held a neutral stance on the construction project, died of an unexplained illness. Everything stated here matched the facts as we knew them. It was certainly commendable that they were able to investigate a confidential matter this well. This year, a photographer visiting the village and a nurse working in the local clinic were murdered. And the day before the great catastrophe, the shrine maiden, who the locals revered as the reincarnation of the village's guardian god, Oishiro-sama, was found dead in the shrine.
Rika-chan no koto ka.
This is about Rika-chan, huh? I imagine that pretty smile I saw so long ago. People from Hinamizawa believe that the gas disaster was caused by the curse of Oishiro-sama, mourning the death of this girl. So in an effort to prevent the curse from reaching them, villagers are devoting themselves and offering sacrifices to calm the anger of their god, committing sacrifices to stave off death. And if all that isn't enough to calm that anger, they'll get others involved. Blood calls for blood, so the blood will continue flowing, tragedy hiding under the name of a ritual. The words were skillfully chosen to evoke the reader's interest. And then... Huh? Towards the end of the article, it mentioned that a citizens group movement was taking action to seek the public disclosure of information about people from Hinamizawa, and that had already spread to the local government and surrounding prefectures. That can't be serious. Even if the content of the magazine article was slightly exaggerated, if the speed and strength of this movement was true, then it was downright persecution of people from Hinamizawa.
Oishi-san, これって
Oishi-san, is this...
ここまで影響が出ているとはね。
I never imagined the impact would be this intense.
これは予想を超える速さですよ。
Really though, things are moving faster than I expected.
この情報が大メディアでも報じられるようになれば。
If even the mass media is reporting this information by now, then...
過剰報道です。
This is too much coverage.
これではまるで魔女狩りじゃないですか。
It's turning into a witch hunt. Slam! I groaned as I pounded my fist into the table. Although Oishi-san looked like he was calmly accepting this development, the pile of cigarettes made it clear he wasn't taking this calmly.
確かに。これでは、ひなみ沢の人たちすべてが恐ろしい犯罪者みたいですね。
Indeed. This makes all the people from Hinamizawa out to be horrible criminals.
ことわざに人を見たら泥棒と思えというのがありますが。
There's an old saying, assume every person you see is a thief.
ひなみ沢出身者を見たら殺人鬼だと思えとでも言うんでしょうか？
Maybe assume every person you see from Hinamizawa is a murderer will become the new saying. No, it's not funny, Oishi.
だから笑っている場合では。
Exactly. Look, this isn't the time to be laughing about.
まあそれはともかくとしても。
Well, regardless.
赤坂さん、私が言いたいのは妙にタイミングが良すぎないかってことです。
What I'm trying to say, Akasuka-san, is that it's weird how perfect the timing is.
と言いますと。
And why do you say that?
いや、情報の流れるのが少々早すぎやしないかってね。
Well, seems like the information is coming out a bit too quickly.
しかも妙なところで段階を踏んで具体的だ。
And they picked an odd time to come out with such concrete information.
例えばこの記事。
For example, look at this article. Oishi-san had a stern look in his eyes as he folded out another magazine and pointed to an article. Right there, I saw a detailed diagram listing the names of the 3 families of Hinamizawa. These 3 families are among the oldest in Hinamizawa, and they say the people in those family lines most strongly inherited the blood of the demons. Below that explanation, it listed the names Furude, Sonozaki, Kimiyoshi. A supplemental explanation mentioned that the name Furude was related to the word divination, Sonozaki was related to intestines, and Kimiyoshi was related to demons. It had become something well detailed that people with good intuition could recognize immediately.
なんでこんなことまで説明を
Why are they explaining even stuff like this?
爪に入ったということじゃないですか?
Of those 3 names, Sonozaki is definitely the coolest name. Give me a name that translates loosely or translates a bit to intestines. That's cool. It means they're entering their end game, doesn't it? Huh?
大小の騒動をあちこちで起こしてその原因やらを噂でルフ
Stirring up all kinds of noise here and there, spreading rumors about the cause.
そして最後はドーンと派手な事件を起こしてたたりを演出
And finally, bang! A flashy incident occurs that they can attribute to the curse.
なんてね
Something like that. Come to think of it, it did seem like something had been guiding the information released since the incident happened. As if some sort of information manipulation was going into these periodicals to convince people this was the cause. That one was really hard to see there. Does that mean the people spreading this information are doing so with some scheme in mind?
恐怖は世間の注目を集めます
Fear is an excellent tool to gain the attention of the public. Right. That was certainly true. Fear appeals to basic human instinct more than any other emotion, so causes people to turn and look. And all of this was happening unnaturally fast.
惨劇はね人を魅了するんですよ
The notion of a tragedy fascinates people. For a moment, Oishi-san's words left me unable to speak.
どういう意味ですか
What do you mean by that? No?
この情報が操作されたものだとしたら相手は恐ろしいほど頭が切れるみたいですよ
If this is information manipulation, our adversary is pretty sharp.
人心をよく心得ているんでしょうな
They have a deep understanding of the human heart.
実にね
Truly. What people are interested in, what they enjoy, and what they fear. So he's saying it's someone well acquainted with the workings of the human heart.
恐怖でしたかねよく言うじゃないですか
It's strategic, wouldn't you say?
人の関心をそらすにはより強力なもので関心を引きつけるとね
To keep people distracted, you need something powerful for them to focus on.
その間に真実は闇の中
All the while burying the truth in the darkness. In other words, Oishi-san was trying to say that the curse was caused by human hands. Behind his words was the implication that there was some conspiracy behind the great Hinamizawa disaster. Someone was trying to make the disaster look like an occult phenomenon and conceal the human factors behind it. To hide the truth from the world, he was convinced of that.
そしてさっき言った爪ですよ
And then there's the endgame I talked about earlier.
爪
Endgame.
奴らはおそらく最後の仕上げをしようと考えているんでしょう
These people are probably thinking of putting on their finishing touches. These people. Finishing touches. What is it? What on earth could it be?
まだこれ以上があると言うんですか
Are you saying there's still even more in store?
え
Right.
俗に鬼の血を強く引いていると言われる御三家はガス災害で全滅したわけではありません
The 3 families, who had the strongest demon blood flowing within them, were not completely eliminated by the gas disaster.
ですから御三家の一族の誰かがひなみ沢から逃れてもなお必要にお社様に追われてその末にたたり殺されたりでもしたらですよ
So even if someone from the 3 families escaped from Hinamizawa, Oyashiro-sama would still relentlessly follow them, and then curse and kill them at the end of that chase.
全国の人々がたたりは本当にあるのだと強烈に信じるとそう思いませんか
That would make people all across the country strongly believe that the curse is real, don't you think? Rika-chan was the only member of the Furude family, so her death ended the family line. The main Sonozaki family also died in the catastrophe, and the relatives seemed to have vanished. Which meant that the family among the three families who had moved out of the village before the great disaster, who the public was currently trying to find, was... Oh,
そうです。
that's right.
君吉の一族で合災害以前に村から遠く離れたところに移住した一家がいます。
There are members of the Kimiyoshi family who migrated out of the village before the gas disaster struck. I pictured the face of Natsumi-san, the girl I met before who enjoyed talking about books. Her smile overlapped with Rika-chan's smile.
この前の君吉夏美さんのご家族ですか？
The girl from before? Natsumi Kimiyoshi-san's family?
ねえ、今は君吉家のご家族さんが一番これから起こる悲惨な事件に近いのかもしれません。
Right. So now, Kimiyoshi family seems the one most likely to suffer another miserable tragedy in the future.
君吉家をさらに重点的に監視する必要がありますね。
We need to monitor the Kimiyoshi household more closely.
監視
Monitor?
ですか？
ねえ、
Right.
もしもたたりに人の何らかの関与が本当にあったとすれば、
If there is any human involvement in this curse,
その誰かさんは君吉家に接触してくると思いませんか？
don't you think that people involved would eventually make contact with the Kimiyoshi family? Indeed, what Oishi-san said sounded reasonable. If the goal was to effectively disseminate knowledge of the curse to a wide area, there was a high probability that the Kimiyoshi family would be the next target, as members of one of the three families. But who among them would they target? Needless to say, they'd go for the girl born and raised in a family deeply related to Hinamizawa, but at the same time living a life seemingly unrelated to Hinamizawa, Natsumi Kimiyoshi. First off, young women have been considered the ideal choice in sacrificial rituals since ancient times. Even in modern times when we've grown to respect human rights, that notion is so deeply rooted in the minds of the people that it remains something they halfway expect. Damn. In that case, she was the perfect pawn to demonstrate the horrors of the curse to the public. I don't know. She said I don't know. She claimed that the curse had nothing to do with her, and in fact it probably didn't. However, if there truly exists a plan to direct this curse, she'd become involved regardless of her intentions.
まさか
No,
大石さん
no way. Oishi-san.
そのまさかです。
That's it.
さてどうしたものか。
Now, what should we do about it?
今、君吉家にはともいちゃんが言ってくれているんですよね。
Tomoe-chan is heading to the Kimiyoshi house today, isn't she? Right. I recalled the incident on Saturday. We grew impatient in our search for clues the other day, and we made a terrible mistake while speaking with Natsumi Kimiyoshi. Fortunately, you didn't make a mistake. It was Oishi. She pressed too hard. Fortunately, she didn't discover that we were detectives, but it was obviously bad form for us to continue contacting her. So we decided to let Chief Inspector Manai handle the investigation of the Kimiyoshi family today. However, Chief Inspector Manai severely reprimanded us about the circumstances at the time.
ですが大石さん、
But, Oishi-san,
それに赤坂警視、
and you too, Inspector Kasuka. Chief Inspector Manai turned and glared at us with a more dangerous look than usual and continued.
状況的にお気持ちは理解できますが、お二人とも今回の件は少々請求に過ぎます。
Even though I can understand how you're feeling in that moment, both of you are far too hasty when it came to this one.
一つ間違えれば未成年者略取で告訴されても文句は言えなかったのですよ。
A single mistake and you could have been accused of child abduction.
いやすみません
Right. I'm sorry.
軽い感じで情報を聞き出すつもりだったんですが
The intent was to gather information from her with a light touch.
軽い？
Light?
大人二人がかりで聞き込みを行う。それだけで女の子には心理的圧迫です。
Two adults questioning her is already plenty of psychological pressure on a lone girl.
もちろん彼女の家族もそうです。
Of course, her family would think so too.
失礼を承知でお聞きしますが、もし警視のお子さんがその立場にあったら、警視はどうお感じになられますか？
Maybe this is rude of me to say, but Inspector, how would you feel if your daughter was in the same position? Don't bring my family into this. Keep her name out of your mouth. Once she used my daughter Miyuki as an example, I couldn't say anything. Certainly in the same circumstances, I'd be furious with those other men.
あの年くらいの女の子はすごく繊細なんです。
A girl at that age is very delicate.
私たち警察にとってはマニュアル通りの接触でも、やり方を間違えれば一生ものの傷になることだってあります。
So even if we police officers make contact strictly by the book, a single mistake could scar her for life.
お願いします。
Please keep that in mind. I reflected on my imprudence while receiving a scolding from Chief Inspector Manai. I should be more careful when questioning younger girls.
いやいや、ずいぶん厳しく絞られちゃいましたね。
Oh boy, she didn't let us hear the end of that one, did she?
しかし見ない警部の注意はもっともです。
But Chief Inspector Manai's concerns were reasonable.
私はその点で配慮が足りなかったと反省しています。
I regret not putting more thought into it back then.
ま、あの子の場合、それだけじゃないんでしょうけどね。
Well, in that girl's case, that's not all. Hearing Oishi-san suggested muttering, I turned my gaze his way with a dubious expression. But he didn't say anything more on the matter. He glanced at the clock on the wall and continued speaking.
とりあえず、ともえちゃんが戻ったらこの件について相談しましょう。
At any rate, we can discuss the case with Tomoe-chan when she gets back.
それからです。
So we can wait until then.
はい。
Right.
しかし大丈夫でしょうか。
But is that really okay?
見ない警部はひなみ沢出身者の調査活動には近
Recently,
頃あまり乗り気ではないように思われますが。
recently, Chief Inspector Manai has seemed less than enthused with the Hinamizawa investigation.
まあ嫌な事件の連続でしたからね。
Well, it has been one nasty incident after another.
介護センターのやつは特にひどかった。
The one at the care center was particularly terrible.
被疑者が3人の入居者を巻き込んで一緒に感電死ですからね。
Suspect and 3 residents were electrocuted to death together. Jesus. When Chief Inspector Manai returned to us from the scene of that bizarre incident, she suggested discontinuing the investigation. It wasn't due to fear of the incident. It was probably the realization that our power alone was insufficient to challenge the depths of the darkness behind this series of incidents. We managed to get through to her somehow. She promised to continue cooperating, but...
しかもあんな接触をした後ですから君吉夏美は完全に警戒してくると思います。
Unfortunately, I think that Natsumi Kimiyoshi will be on the high alert thanks to our previous contact.
見ない警部には難しい仕事をお願いしてしまいましたね。
We dumped a tough job on Chief Inspector Manai, didn't we?
まあ、ともえちゃんなら何とかするでしょう。
Well, I'm sure Tomoe-chan will be able to get something done.
なんせ、もともとは少年係の女性警官でしたからね。
After all,
私たちよりも離れはしていると思いますよ。
after all, handling juveniles used to be our main post. Sure, she's more than used to this than us.
そうな
Or
んです
she's
か。
more used to it. Oh, is that so?
だったら
If that's the case, okay.
いやいや、面目ない話です。
Oh no, I'm ashamed of myself.
私としたことが有力な情報を得られるかもと思ってついつい焦ってしまいましたよ。
I was impatient and rushed at the chance to get some powerful information. I sensed some irritation from Oishi-san as he said that. He too could tell just how dangerous these series of incidents were, and because of his impatience, that irritation drove him to be aggressive, which led to his mistake. Even I struggled to stay calm as I listened to Natsumi-san's story. Indeed, Oishi-san was even more deeply involved with the disaster and the curse, so it probably weighed even more heavily on him.
赤坂さん、
Kasuka-san?
ああ見えて、ともえちゃんはちゃんと言葉に責任を持ってくれる子です。
Despite how she may look, Tomoe-chan makes sure to take responsibility for her words.
力になってくれると言ったからには、それ相応のことをしてくれると思います。
She said she'd help us, so I believe she'll pull through on that.
ですから、私たちは私たちで、できることを片付けましょう。
So we should see what we can do on our end,
ね。
right?
ええわかりました。
Yes. Understood.
そういえば
Oh, that's right. I told Oishi-san about the woman in a suit that the shopkeeper mentioned earlier. Then I spread out the map and began to search for the locations of any publishing companies around this town. woman in a suit. So, woman in a suit. They forced a tough job on me, huh? After taking a sip from the canned coffee she grabbed from a vending machine on the way, Tomoe muttered while looking up at the sky. The sun was shining in a bright blue sky, making it hard to believe how much it rained last night. The moisture in the air and the freshness of the early morning blended together in a soothing breeze. The roar of the cicadas could be heard coming from the row of green trees lined up nearby. Their chorus was so ceaseless that it would be apt to say it kept pouring down like rain. Now, what should I do? She had already scouted out the Kimiyoshi house, and she knew that the housewife Haruko was currently there. She also surveyed her husband Toji's office and the community center that her mother Aki frequently visited. So, she was perfectly prepared for this visit, but no matter how you look at it, prospects look grim. She read up on a certain document that detailed Haruko's past. Based on that, it was clear she wasn't fond of the police, and even seemed to be a little hostile. Thus, even if Tomoe reached out to her, it was unlikely that she would cooperate. Toji was your typical studious businessman, heading to work early in the morning and continuing to work overtime late into the night. He had no hobbies and practically no personal relationship with his coworkers. And he hardly ever stopped at the shopping district, much less the bars, probably fearing his wife's wrath. So the old strategy of setting up an accidental meeting, then fueling the conversation with the power of alcohol, was out of the question. And then, Haruko's mother Aki. Out of the question. She never had a particularly outgoing personality. Ever since she moved to this unfamiliar town, she just shut herself in her home. Even though she had a few friends around her age, she hardly ever talked to anyone else at the community center. She was probably the person with the most direct knowledge about the curse, but if a stranger came asking about it, she probably wouldn't say anything. Then I have no choice but to talk to the girl after all. After letting out a heavy sigh, Tomoe tossed her empty can toward the nearby trash can. The can flew with a beautiful arc, and the sound reverberated as it struck the edge of the bin. What a crappy role I've been given. Really. Natsumi Kimiyoshi. She probably lost a lot of friends in the disaster. An elderly person could deal with that, but for a child her age, the concept of people dying was far too alien. It put a lot of stress on one's mind and body. That wasn't just Tomoe's imagination speaking. In fact, she suffered the same thing, and her sister still had wounds from the experience. This is a girl I should normally be consoling. Nevertheless, Tomoe needed to ask that girl about the source of her anguish, Hinamizawa. What a contradiction.
正直に言って、自分はもうこの一連の事件から手を引きたいと考えています。
To be perfectly honest, I'm already ready to put this series of incidents beside me. Behind me. That makes more sense than beside me. Oh, and when Tomoe came back from the solitary care center, she pulled Akasuka and Oishi into a room and began confessing how she felt to them.
見ない警部。ご無理を申し上げているのは重々承知しています。
Chief Inspector Minai, we're aware of the impossible burden we're imposing on you.
ですが、
Still,
協力を惜しむとか責任がどうとかの話ではありません。
this isn't about regretting cooperating with you, or responsibility or whatnot.
大石さんにはご恩もありますから、可能な限りは協力がしたいと思っています。
I owe you, Oishi-san, so I want to help you as much as I can.
いえ、いました。
No, I wanted to.
ねえ、それについては本当に感謝していますよ。
Yes, I really appreciate that.
ともいちゃん。
Tomoe-chan.
ですが、
But
少なくともここ数日、自分たちが調べ歩いても得られた有益な情報はほとんどなく、
we haven't gained anything after all the time we spent investigating over the past few days.
逆に事態を悪化させているような感すらあります。
And in truth, it feels like we're only making things worse.
真実を求めたい気持ちは自分にもありますし、たたりを盲信する人たちの気候は確かに気になることです。
I want to seek the truth behind these matters, and the behavior of the people who believe in this curse is certainly cause for alarm.
それでも彼らが惨劇を起こすきっかけを自分たちが作り出しているのだとしたら、
Even so, there's the possibility that our actions are somehow creating more opportunities for tragedies to occur.
これ以上の自分たちの関与は無益ではなく、むしろ有害と言うべきではないでしょうか。
In that case, maybe our activities aren't just futile, but harmful as well.
見ない警部。
Chief Inspector Manai.
ねえ、ともいちゃんの気持ちはよくわかります。
Indeed, Tomoe-chan. I deeply understand how you feel.
あなたのことだから、臆してそう思っているんじゃないってこともね。
I'm afraid to think of how this is impacting you in particular. Oishi-san gave his usual gentle nod. Kasuka was able to understand Chief Inspector Manai's feelings painfully well himself. A tragedy had unfolded at a house they investigated previously, as if their actions steered the tragedy in that direction. Anyone would doubt themselves after seeing that, and become hesitant as a result.
ですがね、ともちゃん。
But, Tomoe-chan,
この数日だけで傷害事件がいくつも発生している。
there have been several violent incidents in just the past few days,
それに伴う周辺住民との衝突もね。
and those are stirring up conflict among the surrounding residents.
ここで私たちが引いても騒動は収まらない。
Even if we stop here, these incidents will only continue.
もう引き返せないってことですか。
You're saying there's no turning back?
というより私には、奴らが我々に対して捜査をやめるよう脅迫しているようにも感じられるんです。
Rather, I feel like we're being pressured to stop the investigation. They're trying to intimidate us.
だとしたら、ここで引くわけにはいかないんです。
If that's the case, it's no time to back down.
確かに
Certainly.
舐められたら負けの商売ですからね。
This isn't the sort of business where you give up after one defeat.
あなたを巻き込んでしまったことは本当に申し訳ないと思っています。
I'm really sorry that I got you involved in this.
それでも、私もここで引き下がるわけにはいかないんですよ。
Still, I can't afford to give up here.
私の刑事魂にかけてもね。
The detective spirit won't let me.
大石さん、
Oishi-san,
頼みます。
let me ask properly.
あと少しだけ私に力を貸してもらえませんかね。
Could you lend me your assistance just a little longer? Just asking nicely. Tomoe lightly shook her head, then raised it up. She had never seen Oishi so tenacious before. She wasn't so cold-hearted to overlook that.
とりあえずここで悩んでいても仕方がない。
For now, there's no point dwelling on this. Visiting Natsumi Kimiyoshi's school would be a good start. And then...
あれ
Huh? Just then, on the edge of her line of sight, she noticed a person casually sitting alone on a bench in the corner of the park. Even from this distance, that bright red clothing was clearly a school uniform. And then... Is it red?
君吉
No, it's not.
夏美さん
It's not bright red. It's shit brown. We've established this already. Also, what are the chances she's just here? It's like, I gotta go to the school to try to find Natsumi Kimiyoshi. And it's like, wait, she's right there on a bench. Natsumi Kimiyoshi-san. As she muttered that, Tomoe took a picture out of her jacket pocket to confirm the subject. There was no room for doubt. That girl was Natsumi, the only daughter of the Kimiyoshi family. She glanced at her watch. It was already 9:30 o'clock. She made her way through the other pedestrians over to Natsumi. Natsumi seemed lost in thought with a hard expression on her face, so she didn't notice Tomoe approaching.
学校早退もしくは不登校か。
Did she leave school early? Or is she skipping class? She didn't have time to do a proper preliminary investigation, but she hadn't heard anything from Natsumi being bullied at school. She was known for good behavior and rarely skipped class, so maybe the recent news about Hinamizawa was a factor here.
行くか。
Okay, let's go. The original plan was to stop her on her way home from school, but it was serendipitous that no other students were around at the moment. Tomoe wasn't confident that any strong information would come out of this, but she felt obligated to at least try. She bought 2 cans of juice from a nearby vending machine and headed to the bench where Natsumi was seated. Then...
こんにちは。
Hello! Huh? Natsumi's head reeled up after suddenly being called out to. Since the girl looked a bit frightened, Tomoe carefully approached her with a smile and asked her a question.
ここ空いてる？
Is this seat available?
はい。
Oh, yes.
ありがとう。
Thanks. After a brief bow, Tomoe sat down and took a deep breath. Then she opened one of the juice cans in her hand and took a light sip. The taste was a bit odd thanks to the coffee she drank just before, but she endured it.
ごめんね。お邪魔だった？
I'm sorry, did I disturb you?
いえ。
Huh? No? Despite clearly looking uncomfortable, Natsumi answered by shaking her head. She seemed to be at a loss as to whether I think it's supposed to be as to whether. That's it. Every time I stumble reading this, it's always because it's a typo. It's only typos that make me make mistakes while reading. She seemed to be at a loss as to whether she should get up and leave. Just as Tomoe had heard, she seemed rather timid. In that case,
突然話しかけてごめんなさい。
sorry for suddenly talking to you like this.
なんだか懐かしくてね。その制服が。
Your uniform just looked familiar. Huh?
実はね、私、あなたの学校 OG なの。
I actually went to your same school.
つまり先輩。
So I suppose you could call me an upperclassman.
数学の中村は元気？
How is the math teacher Nakamura doing?
中村先生ですか？
You said Nakamura sensei?
いえ、そんな先生はいませんが。
No, there's no such teacher at my school.
そっか、もう転任しちゃったか。
Ah, I see. Guess she already transferred.
口うるさいやつだったけど、いなくなるとちょっと寂しいわね。
She loved to nag, but I'm a little sad to learn that she's not there anymore. After faintly looking down, Tomoe let out a lonely laugh. Of course, none of that was true. She knew from experience that directly asking what school are you from was no way to get any information. In fact, it could make them recoil and feel frightened that another person was prying into their affairs. So in this case, the best strategy would be to get down on the kids' level, shorten the distance between them, and then persuade them. That was the guidance method that she learned in her time at the youth division. Students who skip school, especially students that do so wearing their uniforms, tend to be actively rebelling against the school system in the first place. So they have a strong desire to seek understanding from other people, and they feel secure sharing conversations with like-minded individuals, even strangers.
それでも、嘘には違いないと思います。
Even so, it's still lying. There was a time when she was first starting out that she said that and revolted against her superior's orders. So personally, Tomoe still hesitated to use the method, and still felt guilty about it. However, ironically enough, it was quite effective. So Tomoe told herself it was all to make kids who were stepping down the wrong path open their hearts, and had managed to rescue them from delinquency in the past.
ごめんなさいね、勝手に喋って。
Excuse me for talking my mouth off like that.
あ、さっき自販機のルーレットで当たったんだけど、もしよかったら。
Oh, I hit the jackpot at the vending machine earlier, so feel free to take one of these.
いえ。
No thanks.
注意しないんですか？
So, you're not going to reprimand me?
何を？
For what?
だって私
For,
学校を休んで。
you know, skipping school today?
実は私も今お仕事サボり中。
Actually, I'm ditching work myself. God, this gives off so much like, so how you do, fellow kids type energy. Tomoe's trying her best. Oh yeah, I'm one of the cool kids too. I'm playing hooky too. I called in to work.
こんな暑い中営業回りよ。
Making sales calls on a hot day like this?
たく、こっちの立場になれってのよ、クソ上司。
Jeez, try standing in my shoes for once, you damn boss. Huh?
だから、あなたと私は同じ。
So you and I have a lot in common.
というわけで、一緒に飲みましょう。
In that case, why not share a drink together? Natsumi's shy and rigid demeanor began to soften a little. After seeing that, Tomoe began feeling a bit more mischievous and pressed the juice can against her neck. So cold!
何するんですか？
Oh, what are you doing?
ね、よく冷えてるでしょ。
See? That cooled you down a lot, didn't it?
私2本も飲めないし、ぬるくならないうちにね。
And there's no way I can drink both of these, so better go for it before it gets warm, right? Natsumi reluctantly accepted the can of juice from Tomoe with a bitter smile, or at least she acted reluctant. Then she pulled up on the tab and took a big gulp.
美味しい。
Tasty.
よかった。
Alright,
オレンジジュースは好き？
so you like orange juice?
あ、はい。
Oh, yes,
私炭酸ってちょっと苦手で。
but the carbonation is a bit much for me.
ああ、わかるな。
Yeah, you can say that again.
喉がイガイガするんだよね、あれ。
It's a little irritating on the throat, isn't it?
私の周りの連中は美味しいって言うんだけど、何がいいのかな？
Everyone else keeps telling me it's good, but I don't get it.
本当ですよね。
It's true.
ジュースはやっぱり甘くて、普通に冷たい方が飲みやすいです。
The juice is really sweet, and it's easier to drink it cold.
へえ、気が合うわね。
Oh, really? You and I are totally on the same page.
私はともえっていうの。
Ah, you can call me Tomoe.
見ないともえ。よろしくね。
Tomoe Minai. Nice to meet you.
私は夏美です。
Oh, I'm Natsumi.
よろしくお願いします。
It's nice to meet you too. Natsumi finally started to open her heart, and she gradually began to smile. Then she started laughing adorably along with Tomoe.
さて、どう話を持っていこうかな。
Now then, how to bring it up with her. Tomoe made small talk about safe topics like school, while waiting for the right time to begin talking about Hinamizawa. If she were only here to reprimand her for skipping school, she would just bring up her own family's history without going too far. But in this case, she was here to question Natsumi as part of her investigation. What would be the best way to address the topic without making her jump on the defensive? It was a tough question. A single misplaced word could make all the work spent curating this cheerful atmosphere go to waste.
と言っても、ひなみ沢の話題を自然に持ち出す流れなんて、どうやったら。
But how can I naturally bring Hinamizawa into the conversation? Just then.
あれ？
Who's that? Suddenly, Tomoe noticed a plastic bag stuffed with newspapers next to Natsumi's seat. And on one side of the bag, the headline, Great Hinamizawa Disaster Investigation, was clearly written in bold typeface.
ねえ、その新聞は？
Hey, what's with that newspaper? Even though it was a casual question, Natsumi shrank down again, and her peaceful expression from up until a moment ago froze away. She then quickly closed her mouth as if trying to hide it. That's...
たくさん買うのね。
You sure bought a lot.
お父さんが読むの？
Does your dad read those?
いえ、お母さんが買って。
No, Mom was the one who bought it. After she groaned those words out, Natsumi fell silent. Feeling uncomfortable with that reaction, Tomoe looked down and tried to think of a way to steer this conversation. Then she spoke in a gentle tone.
ねえ、夏美ちゃん。
Hey, Natsumi-chan?
新聞ならちょっと見せてくれない？
Could you show me that newspaper for a second?
え？
Huh?
うん、今日の夜に見たい特番があったのよね。
Yeah, there's a special program that I was hoping to catch tonight.
ちょっと確認を。
Just let me check real quick.
ダメです。
Uh-oh. No way! Tomoe pulled her outstretched hand away, dumbfounded. When Natsumi noticed that reaction, she immediately returned to herself. She awkwardly looked away with a shocked expression as she caught her breath.
ごめんなさい。
Sorry about that.
私。
I was...
え？あ、
Huh? Oh. After that, Tomoe noticed a cold sensation on her feet and turned her head downward. Looking there, she saw that her can of juice had fallen out of her hand and rolled to the ground, splattering onto her shoes.
すぐ拭きますから。
I'll clean this right away.
本当にごめんなさい。
I'm really sorry.
あ、気にしないで。
Don't worry about it, okay?
これくらいなんとも。
This is no big deal. However, Natsumi took a tissue out of her pocket and squatted down, then carefully wiped Tomoe's shoes with no concern about getting her hands dirty. Tomoe watched on as if Natsumi were sucking poison out of her.
いい子なんだな。本当に。
She really is such a good girl. The more she felt it, the more it hurt. Natsumi's awkward reactions and guilty conscience were probably influenced by her ties to Hinamizawa. Even so, she hadn't done anything wrong. Why did she have to go through all this pain just because she was from Hinamizawa?
すみません。私、もう。
I'm sorry. I've done enough.
ひなみざわ大災害か。
The Great Hinamizawa disaster, huh?
新聞って買ったよね。
Newspapers sure are irresponsible, huh? Huh? After Tomoe said that, Natsumi immediately stopped what she was doing and stood up, and in doing so, revealed her true feelings. Although Tomoe felt a little regret after saying that, she looked up toward the heavens and continued speaking.
たたりだかなんだか知らないけど。
I don't know what this curse is or whatever. I don't know what this curse or whatever is.
人が2000人も亡くなってる大災害を何だと思ってるのかしら。
But they're talking about a disaster that killed 2,000 people as if it were a work of fiction.
残った遺族とか友人とか辛い思いで悲しんでる人はまだいっぱいいるのに。
There are still so many people out there suffering through the loss of their friends and family members.
いい加減な記事を書いてるのって私は好きじゃない。
Yet they're writing these thoughtless articles. I think it's supposed to be plural. I don't like it one bit.
新聞とか雑誌とかニュース番組とか
Newspapers, magazines, TV news, everything.
ああいったものを作ってる人たちにとって他人の不幸はただの商品なんだよね。
The suffering of others is just a product for these people.
そのせいで忘れたいことを無理やり思い出して悲しんだり苦しんだりする人の気持ちなんて全然分かっちゃいない。
They force people to remember things they'd rather forget. They don't understand what the people in mourning are feeling at all. Oh.
それが事実の報道ならまだいいわ。
If they were just reporting on the facts, it would be alright.
でも本当にあったことを面白がってねじ曲げたりこじつけたりでっち上げたり。
But they're twisting the real story to sensationalize it, or outright fabricating it.
それを見て被害者が、そしてその家族や友人たちがどれだけ辛い思いをするかなんて考えたりもしないんでしょう。
It's like they don't even care how the victim's friends and family would feel just looking at it.
人を傷つけておいて何がマスコミの正義を。
The mass media is abandoning their integrity and hurting people.
聞いて呆れるわ。
It's enough to make you sick.
ともえさん。
Tomoe-san. Tomoe was being completely honest here. She still recalled the incident from 12 years ago when her home burned down and claimed the lives of both her parents. At the time, it wasn't just the death of their parents that haunted Tomoe and Madoka. Over time, the press overwhelmed them with sensationalized stories about the incident. The death of her parents, her sister's hospitalization, and her own future. Countless reporters came to Tomoe for interviews, even as she was struggling to deal with her personal tragedies. Publishing things like, why was this detective/father targeted? Conspiracy hidden behind investigation he was undertaking, and so forth. Tomoe didn't know the truth, so she was honest with them about how little she knew, but she was shocked to learn that they rewrote her words without her permission, twisting them into a grudge against the criminal and criticism against the police, telling a completely different story.
何のことはない。私たちを出しにして連中は警察、お上の批判をしたかっただけなんだ。
There was nothing to it. They're just using us as a pretext to criticize the police and the government. In addition, there was an article suggesting that Tomoe was the actual target of the fire. Someone jealous of all the success Tomoe was attaining as a high school athlete started the fire to threaten her, and her parents' deaths were just an unfortunate consequence of that. Thanks to that, the police began to interrogate the other athletes that Tomoe had a friendly rivalry against, which made them resent how much it got in the way of their practice. Eventually, someone brought up the fact that Madoka happened to come home late on the day of the incident that was in a Someone brought up the fact that Madoka happened to come home late on the day of the incident and was in a rebellious phase, which cast baseless suspicion on her.
じゃあ父さんと母さんが死んだのは私たちが原因か？
And they're saying we're responsible for mom and dad's deaths?
ふざけるな！
Ridiculous! How much did those articles contribute to the heartbreak Tomoe and her sister endured? They didn't know for sure. Might be better not to know. And once the readers grew bored and weary, they lost all concern for the girls and clambered on to the next topic. Of course, Tomoe didn't think everyone was like that, but she was never able to dispel her distrust for the media after that. I mean, I just brought it up a little bit ago, but yeah, it always feels like Ryukishi, both now in well, I guess technically, isn't the whole thing Ryukishi didn't technically write these extra arcs or anything? Maybe it's not. Or just supervise these arcs. I don't know how that all works out. I was gonna say, the writing always comes across like as these things where there's moments where it's like critical of like people running with stories and baseless accusations and stuff. Just sensationalizing stories that they have no actual stake in, and how that impacts the people who are actually involved with the stories. It's just interesting. Of course, Tomoe didn't think everyone was like that, but she was never able to dispel her distrust for the media after that.
ペンは剣よりも強しなんて言うけど、そんなものじゃないわ。
They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but that's not really it.
むしろ、ペンは剣よりもひどしって言うべきでしょうね。
The pen is more ruthless than the sword, might be more apt.
もっとも、多数決社会じゃ、大した問題にもならないんでしょうけど。
But we live in a democracy and doesn't have a direct impact on most of them.
一般のその他大勢が喜べば、ごくわずかな少数派のことなんか知ったことか。
If the general public is satisfied, who cares about a few minorities? Yeah.
あ、ごめんなさい。
Oh, sorry.
私ったらつい。
I got carried away.
いえ、
No.
ともえさんの言ってること、なんとなくわかります。
Somehow, I think I understand what you're saying. Natsumi rolled up the tissue and set it on the side of the bench, and sat back in her original seat and continued.
ちゃんとわかりもしないで、自分の常識の枠内で決めつけて、無責任に言って騒ぐのは楽しいですよね。
It's fun to make a fuss about things you don't even understand, while making assumptions about them within your own frame of common sense, isn't it?
言われる相手の都合とか事情とか、そんなのお構いなし。
They're completely oblivious to the circumstances of the people they're talking about.
結局自分が一番なんですよ、みんな。
In the end, everyone looks out for number one.
夏美さん。
Natsumi-san.
でも
Still, Natsumi let out a sardonic chuckle as she looked up to the sky.
叩かれる方にも問題はあると思います。
I think there are problems with getting insulted too.
バカ正直に勝手に信じて思い込んで、
I think it's naive to believe in others unconditionally.
裏切られて傷つく。
You'll only get betrayed and hurt.
だったら最初から信じなきゃいい。
In that case, it's better to not believe in others from the beginning.
誰も近づけず一人でいれば悩むことなんて何もない。
Just keep others at a distance. There's nothing to worry about when you're alone.
それに心をクリアにして相手がなんで私に近づくのかを考えてみれば大体のことは感じます。
Then, if you clear your mind and think about why the other party's approaching you, you can gain a better grasp of the situation.
結局ただの打算だって。
In the end, it's all an act for their own best interest.
でしょ？
Isn't it?
それは、でも。
But...
同情しているように見せかけても本当はただ面白がっているだけ。
Even if someone appears sympathetic, they're only doing it to amuse themselves.
優しく振る舞う自分に酔っているだけ。
Growing drunk on their own kindness.
それなら無視されている方がずっとマシ。
In that case, it's far better to just be ignored.
見下されているみたいだし、本人はいたわってるつもりで満足しているかもしれないけど、その優越感を見せつけられるたび私はイラつく。
It may sound like I'm looking down on them, and maybe their sympathies really are genuine, but It irritates me when they try to flaunt their moral superiority.
傷の痛みも知らないくせにどれだけ私を傷つけているかその子たちはきっとわからない。
Those kids don't know the pain I'm going through. If they don't understand just how much they're hurting me,
わかるわけない。
there's no way they would understand.
わかってたまるか。
They'll never understand.
友達だから。
Damn. They're both just unloading to each other. It's kind of a weird dynamic they got going on here. Because we're friends?
何が友達だ。
Huh. You call that being a friend?
勝手に助けておいて結局自分の手に負えないと分かったら最後は知らないふりして。
Helping out when it supports your self-interests, and when it turns out you can't do anything, pretend you never knew anything in the end?
期待してたんですよ。
I had my hopes up, you know?
ひょっとしたら助けてくれるかもって。
I thought maybe they could help me out.
それを裏切られた時どんな気持ちになると思いますか。
How do you think I feel after betrayal like that?
だったら最初から期待なんてしなきゃいいんだ。
So it's better to expect nothing from the beginning?
君吉さん、
Kimiyoshi-san. Tomoe was mortified after realizing she blurted out a word she shouldn't know. But Natsumi didn't seem surprised at all, and turned to her with a sarcastic smile.
ああ、やっぱり刑事さんだったんですね。
Oh no, even Detective Manai here slipped up. This team sucks. This team is incapable. Even the most capable people in the team can't help but trip over themselves. Ah, just as I thought. You're a detective. Oh god, could you imagine that face just looking at you smiling?
なんとなくそんな気がしてました。
Somehow, I had a feeling.
で、さっきまでの話、どこまでが本当なんですか？
So, how much of our earlier conversation was the truth?
ひょっとして全部嘘。
Maybe all of it was a lie.
私を騙して何かを聞き出すつもりですか？
Were you hoping to question me by deceiving me?
とんでもないペテン師ですね。
You're a fraud. Natsumi is so fucking scary. As like a person, oh my god. Creepy character. Unhinged to the max. You're all the same.
見せかけだけの親しさと優しさで近づいて私のことを裏切るんだ。
Anyone who approaches me under the pretext of kindness ends up betraying me.
そんな汚い人間のクズみたいな真似までしてひなみ沢の何を知りたいんですか？
So tell me, what do you want to know so badly about Hinamizawa that you would resort to these scummy tactics?
ねえ。
So? Well?
違うわ、私は。
You're wrong. I'm... Shut up! The sudden roar made Tomoe freeze and hold her breath. The gentle atmosphere faded away in an instant. It felt like countless sharp needles were stabbing into her body, paralyzing her limbs, and all she could do was shiver. She couldn't even breathe. She felt she was on the verge of fainting. It seemed like she could hear the sound of all the blood coursing through her body. Doing her best to cling to her sanity, Tomoe stared back at the girl in front of her. This was not the weak-minded Natsumi Kimiyoshi who was here a minute ago. Her eyes were so wide it was terrifying. Her fangs were exposed as if ready to devour her in an instant. This was the form of a demon. Several large globs of sweat were flowing down her forehead, then dripped from the tip of her jaw. It almost felt like time had stopped. She could no longer hear the ambient noise of her surroundings. Her field of vision narrowed and filled with colorful static. The repeated blinking of the harsh lights drowned out the contours of the world.
刑事さん。
Detective?
いいえ。巴さん。
No. Tomoe-san? Look out, that sound effect. After Tomoe finally returned to herself, she resisted the urge to back off, putting her full strength into her trembling fists.
あなたの嘘はともかく話を聞いてくれたことは嬉しかったです。
Your lies aside, I'm glad you heard me out.
それは本当ですから。
I mean that, honestly.
それじゃあさよなら。
Anyway, goodbye.
待って、夏美さん。
Oh, wait, Natsumi-san. Natsumi had double head. Natsumi had already grabbed her bag and gotten up from the bench when Tomoe reflexively called out to her. Natsumi made it several steps ahead before stopping with her back turned to Tomoe.
なんです。
What is it?
あなたもひなみ沢のことで
Do you
何かを
also
知りたいんですか？
do you also want to ask about Hinamizawa?
おあいにくですが、知りたかったら他を当たってください。
Sorry, but if you want to know, you'll have to ask someone else.
もっとも、資料とかで調べる以上のことが出てくるとも思えませんが、
Though, I doubt you'll learn anything that you couldn't already find in books.
ただ私に聞いても、期待しているようなことは何も。
But if you ask me, you'll get nothing you're hoping for.
そうじゃない。そうじゃなくて。
That's not it. That's not what this is. She spoke with all her might. Tomoe was no longer speaking as a detective when she said that. Her tongue became tangled, her throat was clogged, and it hurt to breathe. Even so, she had shared Natsumi's pain. So Tomoe couldn't stand idly by as a little girl was about to be consumed by the same darkness as her.
騙したことは謝るわ。ごめんなさい。
I apologize for deceiving you. I'm sorry.
でも、夏美さん、
But Natsumi-san,
あなたはそれでいいの？
are you truly okay with this?
何も信じなくて、すべてを疑って、それで本当にいいの？
Disbelieving everything? Doubting everyone? Are you sure you're alright with that?
いいも何もないですよ。
Whether I'm right with it or not doesn't mean a thing.
これがただ一つの一番正しい方法。
This is the correct way. The only way.
そうでしょ。
Isn't it?
本当に？
Really?
私にはそう見えない。
That's not how I see it.
だって、あなたは本当はそう思ってないでしょ？
Because you don't really think so, do you?
ただそう思おうとしているだけじゃない。
You're simply trying hard to convince yourself of that.
あなたは自分の作ったありもしない悪人だけの世界が全てだと勝手に思い込んでる。
You've concocted this notion all on your own that this world you've created, a world full of nothing but wicked people who don't actually exist, is everything.
随分決めつけるんですね。
That's quite the assumption.
あなたに私の何がわかるんですか？
How could you possibly understand me?
わかるわよ。
I do understand.
さっきも言ったでしょ。私もあなたと同じだったから。
I told you earlier, it's because you and I are the same.
私もね、あなたと同じように絶望して何もかも信じられなくなったことがある。
Just like you, I lost myself to despair and refused to believe in anything.
たった一人で悩んで苦しんで、どうして私だけがこんな目にって世の中全てを恨んだりもしたわ。
I struggled alone, I suffered, and I questioned why things only happened to me. I hated everything in the world.
でもね、
But you know,
何も信じられないのって本当に辛いことなの。
not being able to believe in anything is really painful.
疑えば疑うほど周りの人は私のことを信じてくれなくてどんどん離れていく。
The more I doubted the people around me, the more they stopped believing in me, and kept driving them away.
みんな
Everyone.
だからずっと自分が一人ぼっちで寂しくて怖くて悲しくて。
That's why I felt alone, lonely, scared, and sad.
夏美さん、あなたは耐えられるの？
You think you can endure that, Natsumi-san?
私には耐えられなかった。
I couldn't endure it myself. At one point, Tomoe was just like that. She was overwhelmed with despair and considered ending it all. Studying desperately to keep up in school while working part-time to afford living expenses and taking care of her sister. She kept telling herself that she didn't consider it painful. But whenever she saw children around her age having fun on Christmas and New Year's, it made her feel lonely, even jealous. Still, she believed that her efforts would eventually lead to happiness, so she kept struggling forward, doing her best. Tomoe endured that daily routine, spending no time for personal enjoyment, to say nothing about barely having the time to breathe, and yet one day, her beloved sister ran away from home and left a letter behind. The heartbreak and despair she felt at the time still haunted her dreams to this day. The cold rain beat down on her. Like how suddenly that ended. She lost something precious and dragged her feet up and down asphalt alleys searching for it until she finally collapsed from exhaustion. And then...
畜生畜生
Damn it. Damn it. She couldn't bear it any longer. As her face soaked with rain and tears, Tomoe spit out those dark feelings like she was coughing up blood. Her voice rang out as she began to cry. Why? Why only me? What did I do? I gave up the things I wanted, yet this is the result of all that hard times I've endured. She does whatever she pleases, living her life with not a care for my feelings. Why only me? In that case, what am I really working towards? Why do I endure all of this? If I can never be happy, what is all this suffering and sorrow even for?
もういいわよ。
Enough.
もう私疲れた。
I'm sick of this. That's it. It's time to end this. All of it. Everything. How does it matter? I'll give up this worthless mind and body for anyone, anywhere. I began to think that, right as I was about to submit to despair.
おやどうしましたお嬢さん
Oh my goodness! What's wrong, young lady?
こんなところで寝ていては風邪ひいちゃいますよ
You'll catch a cold sleeping in a place like this. No. I can't get over the fact that Oishi is like this guardian angel like person to her. Huh? Even now, she still couldn't forget that favor. Thanks to him, Tomoe was introduced to people in the know and involved with her parents' incident, and that made her the person she is now.
あの時のことがなかったら、私はどうなっていたかわからない。
I don't know what would have happened to me if that had never occurred.
でも、私はその時分かったの。
But I understood one thing.
私を裏切る奴もいるけど、それ以上に大切に思ってくれる人も絶対にいる。
That even though there are people out there who would betray me, there was also definitely people out there who cared about me more than that.
自分が最後まで諦めなければ。
That I couldn't give up until the end.
今でも自分の親しい人たちに裏切られるかもって思って不安になって怖くなる時もある。
Even now, I still have occasional fears that my closest friends might one day betray me.
だけど、世界は冷たいばかりじゃない。
But there's more to the world than coldness.
それに相手の優しさには打算とか悪意もあるかもしれないけど、
Besides, there might be malice and self-interest lurking behind the kindness of others.
その気持ちそのものの温かさはきっと本物なのよ。
But the warmth of that kindness is definitely real.
綺麗事ですね。
Such pretty words.
虫唾が走りますよ。
You make me
そんなの。
sick. You make me sick.
いいじゃない。綺麗事だって。
So what if they're pretty words?
いつか死ぬ直前になって自分の記憶の中を真っ黒に塗りつぶしたくなるような思いをするくらいならずっとそっちの方がマシよ。
We don't want to look back on our memories on the day we die and feel the need to paint over them in black.
やってみたこともやってみようとも思わなかったあなたにそんなこと言わせない。言われたくない。
I won't let you say things like that when you haven't tried, or even thought about trying. I don't want to hear it from you.
私が味わった地獄まで否定するな。
Don't deny the hell that I've tasted. Damn. That line goes hard. Don't deny the hell that I've tasted. After Tomoe finished her speech, Natsumi seemed to recoil in response, and her shoulder turned ever so slightly back. At that moment, Tomoe finally realized that she was crying. And while staring at the blurry figure of Natsumi's back, she wanted to believe that her words reached Natsumi, at least a little.
ねえ、夏美さん。
Hey, Natsumi-san?
誰も信じられないなんてそんなこと思わないで。
Don't go thinking you can't trust anyone.
あなたにも優しさを向けてくれる人がいるでしょ。
Aren't there people out there who have shown you kindness?
友達とか家族とか、その人たちはきっとあなたのことを。
Friends? Family? Sure there are people who have.
いませんよ。
No, they're not.
え？
Huh? Slowly, Natsumi turned to face Tomoe. With no light in her eyes, as cold as before. However, behind all that, Tomoe felt like she was shaking. Tomoe felt like she saw her shaking.
家族なんか私にはいません。
A family is something I don't have.
私の幸せを奪っていくような人たち、私の家族じゃないです。
People who would deprave me of my happiness are no family of mine.
夏美さん。
Natsumi-san?
ともえさん、
Tomoe-san.
もっと早くあなたと会いたかったな。
I wish I had met you sooner.
そうすればきっと。
If that were the case, then surely.
さよなら。
Goodbye.
話せて嬉しかったです。
I'm happy that we had this talk. And this time, Natsumi left the vicinity without looking back. For a while, Tomoe just stood there, quietly staring at the park entrance. Yeah. Fucked up. How much time had passed? Tomoe sat on the bench feeling helpless, but her efforts were in vain. She had gotten emotional while telling her story to Natsumi. Natsumi must have been exasperated. And in the end, she didn't gain any useful information.
あれ
Huh? Tomoe reluctantly got up from the bench to make her way back to the station, and as she did, she noticed something out of place and turned to the side. A lovely little pink box was sitting there.
コンパクトじゃない。
A makeup
ピル
kit?
ケース
A makeup kit? No, a pill case? As she opened the lid, she noticed 6 capsules stored in 2 packages inside. She checked the serial numbers on the back, but she found numbers and letters she had never seen before.
これって誰の。
Who does this belong to? By removing the contents, she was able to see something written on the bottom of the case. The name Natsumi Kimiyoshi was written there in clear handwriting. Maybe it fell out of her pocket when she pulled out the tissue to wipe Tomoe's shoes.
こんな箱に入れてるってことは常備薬。
Does the fact it was in a case like this mean she takes this medicine on a regular basis? If that was the case, she needed to return it right away. After that thought, Tomoe rushed up and ran after Natsumi. But just then, her pager made an annoying sound.
もうタイミング悪いわね。
What awful timing.
と
Tomoe reluctantly ran to the nearest unoccupied phone booth, lifted the receiver, tossed in a 10-yen coin, and dialed the Kageboushi Station Criminal Investigation Division. Oh, a new image? New background? Phone? In a phone box booth thing? How exciting. Hello, this is the 1st Criminal Investigation Division.
藤田君
Fujita-kun?
見ないです。
It's Minai.
私のベルに連絡があったんだけど。
I received a note on my pager.
なんですって。
What was that?
畠山家でまた事件。
Another incident with the Hatakeyama family.
それで内容は。
Then what are the details? In shock, with her eyes open wide, Tomoe returned the handset to the hook.
なんてこと。
I can't believe it. The incident that Fujita had just informed her of was that the Hatakeyama family, from the incident the other day, were gunned down with a hunting rifle. Oh. Later, Wednesday, July 6th, 1983.
なるほど。
I see.
そんなことがあったんですか。
So that's what happened, huh?
ええ、
Yes.
力が及ばず本当に申し訳ありません。
I'm really sorry that I couldn't accomplish anything more. Chief Inspector Minai held the steering wheel and continued looking in the direction she was driving as she explained the circumstances to us in the back seat.
まあそんなに自分を責めずに。
Well, don't be too hard on yourself.
ともえちゃんでダメなら私たちならもっと拉致が開きませんでしたよ。
Even if you didn't accomplish much, it's more than we could have done.
ねえ赤坂さん。
Right, Kasuka-san?
ええ、全くです。
Yes, absolutely. I agreed with a strong conviction in my voice. And hopefully, that got through to Chief Inspector Minai, at least a little.
それにしても
Even so,
どうしました？
what is it?
よくテレビではキレるなんて言葉を使いますが、
Well, on TV they talk a lot about snapping under the pressure.
最近の子って難しいですよね。
Kids these days sure are complicated, huh?
切れる？
Snapping. Chief Inspector Minai rubbed her neck as she described her meeting with Natsumi Kimiyoshi the other day.
学校とか近所の聞き込みでは引っ込み思案なおとなしい子だって話でしたが、わからないものです。
When I asked around at her school and her neighborhood, people described her as a shy and docile girl, So I don't understand.
あんな風に土星を上げるほどに気が強いとはちょっと意外でした。
It's really surprising that she raised her voice and became aggressive like that.
気が
Aggressive?
強い
Hearing that word made me feel uncomfortable. I only met her once, but I didn't sense even an ounce of aggression in her. In fact, she seemed like the kind of girl who didn't even have the will to escape even when she was feeling uncomfortable, didn't she?
まあそこの母親は勘の強い方だって有名みたいですからね。
Well, her mother has a reputation for having an iron will,
その娘も性格はどこか似てくるものですよ。
so it's reasonable for a daughter to have a similar personality to her parent.
ね、赤坂さん。
Right, Kasuka-san?
ええそうですね
Huh? Yeah, that's right. But I wondered if that was really the reason. Just then,
助けてあげたいんです。
I'd like to help
彼女のこと。
that girl. Huh? Unable to understand what Chief Inspector Manai was getting at, I suddenly raised my head. I saw through the rearview mirror that she was looking straight ahead, but in her eyes I noticed a shimmer of loneliness.
昔の私とどこか似てるなって。
I see something of my past in her.
立場と状況が違えば私もああなっていたかもしれませんし。だから
If circumstances were a little different, I also might have turned out that way, so...
ともえちゃん。
Tomoe-chan. We fell silent. The car continued approaching Kakuji Station at a gentle speed. Meanwhile, the three of us couldn't say anything. We were lost in our heartfelt thoughts. Pink Moon. We must help Natsumi. Let's read one more section. I'm feeling up for it. Let's keep going. Spring. Let's just hope it's not like 2 hours long of a section. Spring 1981. Somewhere. Since when did food and alcohol become so delicious? It's something I'm always saying. Every time, I'm always saying this. Since when did food and alcohol become so delicious? On this day, Tomoe is probably experiencing the third happiest moment of her life thus far.
ちょっともう飲みすぎだよ。
You've been drinking too much.
お姉ちゃんってば。
Come on, sis.
いいじゃないの、たまにはさ。
It's fine once in a while.
すみません。
Excuse me. Tomoe was slightly drunk and gleefully laughing as she opened the sliding door and called out to the waitress. Then she ordered 2 more bottled beers and asked if they could drink the wine that she had brought for the occasion.
お願いします。
I'm sorry.
今日だけ見逃してください。
This is just for today. Could you please overlook it?
はあ、そうですね。
Of course. Strictly speaking, bringing outside food and drink into this restaurant was prohibited. However, when Tomoe explained the situation to the waitress, she shrugged her shoulders and said, "Our little secret," then went into the kitchen and came back with 2 beautiful wine glasses.
そうそう、これこれ。
Oh, yes, this is it.
やっぱワインを飲むのがコップだとなんだか味気なくなっちゃうもんね。
Wine doesn't taste as good when you drink it from a cup, after all.
それじゃ、許可も下りたことだし、景気よく全部飲んじゃいましょう。
Well, we have permission and things are going well, so let's drink the whole thing.
もう強引だな。
You're so pushy. You so pushy.
それにそのワ
Not
イ
even
ン
your.
すごく高いでしょ。
And isn't that wine expensive?
確かシャットなんだっけ。
I mean, that's a chateau. I forgot the name.
本当に大丈夫なの？
Is that really okay?
何言ってるの。
What are you talking about?
今日はあんたの警察官採用のお祝いなのよ。
We're celebrating today because you were accepted into the police force, right?
本当だったらもっと高いのにしようと思ってたんだけど、とりあえずこれで我慢しなさい。
Honestly, I was thinking of getting something even more expensive, but this will have to do for now.
これでも十分大げさだって。
This is already overdoing it. Madoka shook her head in exasperation, but even so, she still looked happy. Indeed, Tomoe was certainly in unusually high spirits that evening. Breaking the rules inside a restaurant seemed like something she would never do. However, it wasn't unreasonable. After all, even though they had been fighting for a long time, followed by Madoka leaving and living far away, she finally seemed to be taking work seriously. Back when it was just the 2 of them, after their parents' deaths, After the psychological trauma her sister endured in that incident, Tomoe dedicated her life to protecting her. She abandoned her promising future in athletics and declined to enroll in the university that sent her a personal invitation, all to further that goal.
未来本当にいいのか
Minai, are you really okay with that?
今のお前の実力なら次の世界陸上の日本代表だって狙えるところにいるんだ
With your current capabilities, you could become the Japanese representative in the next World Athletics competition.
大学がダメなら実業団にだって紹介状を書いてもらえるだろう
If you're not interested in college, we could write you recommendation letters for corporate sports teams.
だから陸上を完全に諦めなくてもいいんじゃないか
So you don't have to give up on track and field entirely, right? Fellow club members, alumni, the counselor, everyone told her that and tried to stop her. Nevertheless, Tomoe's determination was unshaken.
陸上を続ける限りきっと練習だの遠征だのと忙しい毎日を送ることになります
As long as I continue doing track and field, I'm sure I'll be busy with practice and exercise every day.
妹が昔の明るさを取り戻すまで私はできる限りのことをしてあげたいんです
I want to do as much as I can for my sister until she regains that shine she once had. Indeed, as far as Tomoe is concerned, her sister was far more important than extracurricular activities and career planning. From then on, Tomoe tried desperately hard to fill in for her lost parents. During Madoka's hospitalization, Tomoe skipped out on school to support her through her psychological care and rehabilitation. After Madoka's hospitalization concluded and they returned home, Tomoe studied day and night to make up for the missed schoolwork. And after Madoka returned to school, Tomoe did her best to protect her sister during the many times she got into trouble at school. All the while believing it would help her regain her former happiness, even a little. Nonetheless, Tomoe was ready to give up on the university entrance exams because she didn't think she'd be able to pass in the short time she had to prepare. Maybe it was luck, or maybe it was a result of her efforts, but somehow she managed to pass the Ibaraki National University entrance exam. She decided to go to Ibaraki, where her grandmother was from, rather than the familiar Tokyo. Needless to say, Madoka's hard time at school was a major factor. Once Tomoe began attending college, their distant relatives started helping the girls who lost their parents by paying for tuition and living expenses. However, Tomoe saved all that up for Madoka's future and never spent a cent on herself.
国立大ならバイト先も見つけやすいし奨学金もあるからね
It's easier to find part-time work at a national university, and there are scholarships too.
これはまどかの結婚資金として残しておきたいの
So I like to set this money aside as a wedding fund for Madoka. Her grandmother seemed a little concerned with that reply, but she meant it earnestly. Tomoe firmly believed that the probability of making one of them happy was much higher than the probability of them both being happy. Still, despite those intentions, Madoka suddenly dropped out of high school one day. And when Tomoe came home to question her about it, her grandmother told her that Madoka had already walked out.
ごめんなさい
I'm sorry.
私はもうお姉ちゃんのお荷物になりたくない
I don't want to be your baggage any longer.
これ以上お姉ちゃんに迷惑をかけたくありません
I don't want to bother you any more than I have, sis. That letter was the only thing left in her room.
どうか探さないでください
Please, don't come looking for me.
お元気でさようなら
Take care. Goodbye.
何よ何よ
What? What?
お荷物なんてお荷物なんて
Baggage? What's this about baggage? Who said anything like that? When did she even think that? I've never thought of Madoka as a burden, not even for an instant. That girl was always my precious, my only little sister.
バカ野郎まどかの大バカ野郎
Moron. Madoka, you're a goddamn moron. She desperately searched around town. She visited every place she knew and called every one of her acquaintances. Walking late into the night for days, walking, and walking some more. And after trashing several pairs of shoes, Tomoe finally understood. It was an undeniable fact that Madoka wasn't in this town anymore. One night, when she heard that some of Madoka's friends had helped her board a bullet train, Tomoe stood out in the alley, in the middle of the pouring rain, looked up at the heavens and cried. She had been holding in the sorrow from the death of her parents all this time, but in that moment, she was powerless to hold back the rush of tears. If Tomoe hadn't run into Oishi at that time, she might have destroyed herself in her desperation. Then, a few years later, Tomoe was traveling to Tokyo as part of police business. By some amazing coincidence, she ran into Madoka at a street corner downtown. And when Tomoe learned that Madoka was working in a shady establishment, for the first time in her life, she smacked her. No! I'm not going home. Madoka pushed Tomoe's extended hand away as she said that, with her cheek red and swollen.
まどか、あんた
Madoka, you...
私のことは放っておいてよ。
Leave me alone.
お姉ちゃんと違ってバカだけど、私は私なりにちゃんと考えて生きてるんだから。
I'm not as smart as you, sis, but I'm living and thinking properly on my own here.
考えてる
Thinking?
一体何をよ
What on earth are you thinking?
あんたの考える生き方は酒進めながら中年男たち相手に嘘800並べ立てることか
Your way of thinking involves feeding middle-aged men a pack of lies to sell them more alcohol.
それでもお金もらってるんだから立派なお仕事よ。
It's still bringing in decent money, so it's a wonderful job.
みんな真剣に必死に働いてる。
Everyone here is seriously working hard.
勝手な偏見で見下したこと言わないで。
Don't look down on me with your narrow-minded prejudices. Awkward.
まどか
Madoka,
このあんたは
this is what you've become? She still remembered the pain in her fists at that moment, even now. Then, several more years passed, up to today. Since that day, Tomoe had prepared herself to never see her sister again. Still, the fact that Madoka suddenly contacted Tomoe after such a long time and traveled a long way to be here like this likely meant that deep down, she had been waiting for this moment all this time.
いろいろあったけどでももういい
There were a lot of things between us, but enough is enough.
まどかがやっと心を入れ替えてくれたんだから
Madoka,
これ以上のことはない
Madoka finally changed her mind, so that's all that I need. Plus, Madoka was becoming a police officer, just like Tomoe and her father, so Tomoe was deeply moved.
ほら足が止まってるわよ
Come on, why aren't your chopsticks moving?
何食べる
What are you having?
あ塩辛あるわねそれ頼もっか
Ah, they have salted fish. Maybe I'll have that.
あんた好きだったでしょ
You like that, right?
もういいってば。
Enough about that.
だいたい倹約家のお姉ちゃんがどういう心変わりなの？
You're usually so frugal, so what's with this change of heart, sis?
そりゃ確かにお祝いしてとは言ったけど、何もこんな高そうな料亭でやらなくても。
Well, I certainly said we should celebrate, but we didn't have to go to such an expensive restaurant.
何言ってるのよ
What are you saying?
いいまどか
Listen, Madoka.
こういう時のためにお金ってのは使うものなの
The whole point of money is to use it for times like these.
無駄遣いは良くないけどケチばっかりでも人生楽しくないでしょ
Wasting money is a shame, but don't you need to have a little fun in your life?
違う
Am I wrong?
うわ、お姉ちゃんがそれ言うかな。
Wow, sis, I can't believe you said that.
うっさい
Enough about that.
それにさ私も再来月からは警部補なんだから
Besides, I'm being promoted to deputy inspector in 2 months.
お給料だって上がるんだしどーんと任せなさいっての
And that comes with a nice salary increase, so leave this to me.
そっか、いよいよ警部補なんだね。
Oh, I see. So you're finally a deputy inspector.
遅くなったけど、おめでとう。
Guess I'm late in saying this, but congratulations.
ありがとう
Yeah, thanks. Their glasses full of amber wine clanged together as the two of them celebrated each other's accomplishments. Even though she was a college graduate, she was still a woman, and very few people outside the executive path made the rank of deputy inspector at so young an age. However, even though Tomoe had no desire to climb among the elites, her father's brave name happened to work in her favor.
だけどお姉ちゃんって今は警部補研修期間だから警察学校で寮生活なんでしょ？
Oh, but I guess you're living and training at the police academy now as part of the promotion to deputy inspector?
こんな夜に外出して門限は大丈夫なの？
Are you sure you're gonna make your curfew this late at night?
大丈夫よ
It's fine.
初任教養の時と違って割とその辺は緩やかなんだから
Unlike the initial police training, the space is less strict about that.
今日は土曜日だし明日の新幹線で帰れば問題なしよ
Today's Saturday, so there won't be any problem if I take the bullet train back tomorrow.
へえ。
Wow.
ねえ、寮ってどんな感じ？
Hey, what's it like in the dorms?
参考までに教えてよ。
I'd like to know for reference.
いいわよ
Sure thing.
まどかも来月から警察学校に入るんだもんね
Right. You're also entering the police academy next month.
と
I After saying that, Tomoe grabbed a bunch of old notes and pamphlets she had prepared in advance and pulled them out of her bag. True to Tomoe's character, all the pages were tattered, and when she opened them up, they were covered in marks and sticky notes.
きっと押し入れの奥からでも引っ張り出してきたんだろうな。
She must have pulled this from the back of the closet. She must have turned the whole house upside down to find these things covered in dust, hoping to help her younger sister. Tomoe was willing to put in the effort to help Madoka anytime. And even though their feud continued to this day, that aspect of her character didn't change a bit. Madoka suddenly felt teary-eyed, but she tried to wipe it away with her fingers and pushed herself to stay bright and cheerful. It would be boorish of her to look gloomy when they came all this way to celebrate.
へえ、結構覚えること多いんだね。
Wow, there are a lot of things to remember.
憲法、民法、刑法。
The Constitution, the Civil Code, the Penal Code.
うわ、英語って必須なの？
And whoa, English is mandatory?
当たり前じゃない。外国の人も立派な一市民よ。
Isn't that natural? Foreigners are citizens too.
舐めてかかると痛い目に遭うんだから。
You're in for a world of hurt if you look down on them.
とほほ。
No way.
まさかまたこの年になってバテレンの言葉を学ばなきゃいけないとは。
Needing to learn the language of Christian missionaries at my age.
あんたいつの時代の人よ。
What century are you from?
ま、確かにまどかってお父さんと一緒で英字書くの下手くそだったもんね。
Well, you did take after Dad and his terrible handwriting when it came to English letters, didn't you?
失礼な。
How rude!
お父さんほどひどくなかったよ。
I was never as bad as Dad was.
多分。
Probably.
他にも道交法とか救急関連の知識とかもあるからね。
Aside from that, you need to know the rules of the road and emergency procedures.
もちろん逮捕術と武道も。
And of course, how to conduct an arrest and some basic martial arts.
そういえばまどかは前に剣道やってたっけ？
By the way, Madoka, didn't you take kendo before?
前って小学校の話じゃない。
Yes, before, but that was all the way back in elementary school.
一級取ってすぐやめちゃったからやってなかったのと一緒だよ。
I quit after attaining first Q, so it's basically like I never took it up to begin with.
大丈夫よ。きっと体が覚えてるから。
That's fine, I'm sure your body will remember.
私の時もそうだったしね。
It was the same for me.
お姉ちゃんと一緒にしないでってば。
Sis, just because you did it doesn't mean I can.
大体ね。
Besides... And for a while, the two of them went on excitedly telling old stories and sharing memories of each other. They covered a range of topics, and the noise and laughter never stopped. In addition to the nostalgia, they took pleasure in closing the gap in the time they spent away from each other.
そういえば寮にお姉ちゃん以外の女の人っているの？
By the way, are there any women other than you in the dorms?
結構いるわよ。
Yeah, plenty.
最近は女性警官の採用が増えたからね。
The number of female officers has increased recently.
と言っても警部補見習いは今年は私一人だけみたいだけど。
But it seems I was the only one nominated for deputy inspector this year.
だからそう言うとみんなびっくりしてる。
So everyone was surprised when I told them.
そりゃそうだよ。
Well, yeah.
30前でしかも女性で警部補さんでしょ。
A woman under the age of 30 being promoted to deputy inspector?
普通ならありえないよ。
Completely out of the norm. Many industries have been publicly endorsing gender equality, but actually implementing that into the workplace was another issue altogether. Police officers in particular are required to have the robustness to deal with criminals, so being a lady is seen as a disadvantage. In fact, Tomoe's test results were a larger factor in her promotion than her manager's recommendation in the job interview. When she found out she passed the test on her first shot, she couldn't believe her ears.
最近の偉い人たちは割と懐が大きいみたいね。
Bigwigs these days seem rather broad-minded.
まさかこんなにも早くお父さんと並べるとは思っていなかったんだけど。
I never would have expected to catch up with Dad so soon. After saying that, Tomoe chugged the rest of her wine. Madoka had a bitter smile on her face as she refilled Tomoe's empty glass. Empty. Even though it was a rural college, Tomoe still graduated from a national university, whereas her father, Yusuke Manai, was just a high school graduate. So thanks to that key difference in their educational background, they couldn't be compared so easily. But for the two of them, the title of deputy inspector certainly had a special sentiment.
お姉ちゃん、
Sis,
まだお父さんのあれ
are you...
相変わらず追い続けてるの？
Are you still chasing that thing Dad left behind?
Eh?
Huh?
もちろんよ。
Yeah, of course. That thing was the memo from Tomoe's father that she found in the scorched remains of the storehouse after their parents perished in the fire. According to the note, her father Yusuke and I discovered something on a Wednesday in June, but she still couldn't figure out what it meant.
警部補になったら過去の捜査資料も前より見ることができるんだよね。
Once you're promoted to deputy inspector, you'll be able to review archived investigation materials, right?
よかったじゃない。これからはだいぶやりやすくなるよ。
Isn't that great? That'll make things much easier from now on.
うん。
Yeah.
だけど警部補になると今までよりも忙しくなって年休があんまり取れなくなるんだよね。
However, being promoted to deputy inspector also means I'll be even busier with work, so I won't be able to take much time off.
それに警察庁で力になってくれていた人も今度異動になるみたいだし。
Plus, the person at the NPA who'd been helping me out is apparently getting transferred soon, so...
そうなんだ。
I see.
あれからもうすぐ10年なんだね。
Soon it'll be 10 years since then. Did it really feel like 10 years? Or was it no time at all? Tomoe wasn't sure. However, since losing her parents and living away from Madoka, she dedicated her life to pushing herself hard at work every day.
ごめんね。せっかくのめでたい席に変なことを思い出させて。
Sorry for dragging up awkward memories when we're supposed to be celebrating.
さあ、今日はとにかく飲みましょう。
Come on. Today's a day for drinking.
もうそんなに気合い入れなくても。
I think I've already hit my limit.
お姉ちゃんはただでさえ大食いで大酒飲みなんだからさ。
Sis, you were always the big eater and the big drinker.
ちょっとくらい抑えめで標準だよ。
Maybe a little restraint would be better.
失礼ね。
How rude.
お酒はもともとそんなに飲まないわよ。
I don't drink that often.
ただ飲むときには思いっきり飲むだけで。
But when I do drink, I make sure to drink plenty.
それを大酒飲みって言うのよ。
That's what they call a big drinker. Nah.
あ、そうだ。
Oh, right.
せっかくだから今日はあんたの家に泊めてもらおうかな。
Sorry to trouble you, but would you mind if I stayed at your house tonight? Huh?
うん、それがいいな。
Yeah, that would be better.
そうしたらホテル代も浮くしね。
It would save me the hotel fee.
いいでしょ、まどか。
Is that okay, Madoka?
だからそういうところがケチだって。
Come on, why are you being so stingy about this?
じゃなくて。
Wait, that's not important here.
私の家に来るの？
You want to come to my house?
それはちょっと。
I don't know about that.
いいじゃない、姉妹なんだからさ。
Come on, we're sisters.
別に誰かと同棲してるってわけでもないんでしょ。
It's not like you're living with someone, are you?
え？
Huh? After seeing Madoka's reaction, Tomoe stopped pouring the wine and looked up. Her face was turning slightly red and her eyes were wandering.
いるの？
Is there someone?
一緒に住んでる人？
A person you're living with? Huh?
いや、その。
No, well...
正確には私がその人の家に住んでるんだけどね。
To be more precise, I live in their house.
ふーん。そうなんだ。
I see. That slightly unexpected answer washed away Tomoe's drunken mood. Thinking about it, they were both much older, so it wasn't all that surprising. Still, realizing that her sister was no longer the girl she'd once known, who had no other ally in the world apart from Tomoe, made her feel lonely.
ごめんね。
I'm sorry.
別に秘密にしておくつもりはなかったんだよ。
I didn't mean to keep it a secret.
ただ、もう少しちゃんと目処がついたら報告しようかなって思ってただけで。
I just thought it would be better to wait until I was sure things were steady before telling you.
何言ってるのよ。
What are you saying?
同棲してる時点で十分リーチじゃないの。
Isn't living together enough of a stretch?
いや、お姉ちゃんのその考え方はちょっと古すぎるような。
No, sis, your perspective is a little old-fashioned. For the longest time, Tomoe held very proper ideals about men and women dating. She knew it would be too late by this point, but if it came out now that Madoka had been living with a man when she ran away from home or something, Tomoe would have started lecturing her until the sun came up.
それで？
So?
え？
Huh?
ちなみにどんな人なの？
What What kind of person is this guy?
もし水商売関係とか言ったらぶっ飛ばすわよ。
If you tell me he's a nightclub worker, I might have to smack you.
違うって。
It's not like that.
立派な肩書きも社会的信用もある人だよ。
He has a real job with a title and credibility.
それにとっても優しいし真面目で。
He's thoughtful and earnest.
そんなの私会ってもいないのにわかんないわよ。
Well, how would I know that if I haven't met him?
というわけだから近いうちに紹介しなさい。
So you have to introduce us soon.
これ命令ね。
Ah, that's an order.
もうこういうところでお姉ちゃんパワー使わないでよ。
Come on, don't use your sister power like this.
それにお姉ちゃんだって知ってる人だよ。
Besides, you already know him. Uh-oh.
ほら警察庁でお世話になった。
He's helped you out from the NPA.
警察庁でお世話に
Help from the NPA?
はて。
After hearing that, Tomoe thought of the faces of the people she met at the National Police Agency. But most of them were married men. Therefore...
まさか不倫
No way. Are you involved in an affair?
あのね
Hold on.
私のこと一体どう思ってるのかな。
What on earth do you think of me?
そんなわけないでしょ。
I wouldn't do something like that.
ちゃんと結婚も考えてるんだからね。
Plus, I'm thinking about getting properly married, okay?
じゃあ誰なのよ。
Well, who is it then?
教えてくれてもいいじゃない。
Can't you tell me?
なら言うけど驚かないでよ。
Alright, I'll tell you. But don't be surprised, okay? What?
冗談はやめてよ。
You're kidding.
そんなの私絶対認めないわよ。
There's no way I can accept that. I'm actually glad the game, or the story here, went back and showed us a flashback of the moment, because we had been told, like, oh, Tomoe disapproved of this relationship that Madoka had come to her and told her about and stuff, and it's always nice to see the actual, what the actual reaction was.
警部、
Chief Inspector?
見ない警部。
Chief Inspector Manai?
ああうるさい。
Shut up!
今取り込み中。
I'm in the middle of something.
それに私は警部じゃなくて警部補よ。
Besides, I'm not a Chief Inspector yet, I'm a Deputy Inspector.
起きてください。見ない警部。
Please, wake up, Chief Inspector Manai. Thursday, July 7th, 1983. Inside Kageboushi Station. I'm awake.
は
What? When she opened her eyes, a familiar face stood before her.
藤田くん
Fujita-kun.
すみません、お休みのところ。
Sorry for interrupting your rest.
よろしいですか。
Can you spare a moment?
あうん
Yeah. Yawn. Tomoe slightly raised her upper body as she let out a small yawn, then she looked around with her eyes still half asleep. This was the break room. She intended to take a light nap in the middle of the night and laid herself down on the chaise lounge. But apparently, she had fallen completely asleep. She could see the light of the morning sun and hear the cry of a sparrow coming from outside the window. Tomoe noticed a large blanket down by her feet and realized someone must have hung it over her.
夢か。
A dream, huh?
Eh?
What?
うんなんでもない。
No, it's nothing. Finally starting to regain her consciousness, Tomoe sat up in the chair and quickly folded up the blanket. And after delicately slapping both her cheeks, she turned to Detective Fujita.
何か動きが
Did something happen?
ええ。例の件で少々。
Yeah, it's related to the active investigation.
早朝で申し訳ありませんが、第三会議室に来ていただけますか。
Sorry for waking you up so early in the morning, but could you come to conference room 3?
大石刑事と赤坂警視も、もう間もなくこちらに到着する予定です。
Detective Oishi and Inspector Kasuka will be arriving soon.
わかった。
Understood.
あちょっとシャワー浴びてきたいから10分後でもいい
Oh, I'd like to take a shower first. Can it wait 10 minutes?
わかりました。では。
Understood. See you then. Detective Fujita gently bowed, then left the break room. He was a straightforward type, and he wore his feelings all over his face. From how he looked, it was easy to assume she wouldn't like the news he had in store.
さてと
Well then, Tomoe stood up and exited the break room. The shower room was far from the break room, so as she walked down the empty hallway, she thought back on the content of her dream.
あの日は結局また喧嘩別れだったな。
We ended up fighting and parting ways again that day. After leaving the celebration, she boarded the last bullet train with her head boiling in anger. She drank more on the way and got into a scuffle with the conductor at Tokyo Station. At least, she thought so. She was completely drunk at the time, so she didn't remember much. And she eventually woke up on a park bench. Even she was stunned to discover her body was still in one piece. Fortunately, Madoka called a few days later to say sorry about before, which prevented the issue from escalating.
今思えば別にあそこまで怒る必要はなかったんだよね。
In hindsight, there's no need to get that angry, was there? Her sister, and the man from the MPA who'd helped her out, their father's old boss, and Tomoe's current boss. Love had no age limit, so if Madoka was Love had no age limit, so if Madoka was serious about him, Tomoe should be willing to accept it. Even though she had her misgivings about the age difference, it wasn't a strong enough reason to be opposed. Her opposition at the time was really just jealousy. The loneliness of her sister moving away reminded her of losing her parents.
とはいえ
Although, Tomoe thought back to a few days ago about what she said to Natsumi. To not simply wait to find people to believe in, but to make an effort to believe in them. She didn't practice that belief even though she was the one who said it. No matter how great it sounded, it was only an empty promise.
そうよね。
Right.
あの子にあれだけ大見栄を切ったんだから。
I said that so proudly to that girl.
そろそろ潮時かな。
So, now is the time to act. Tomoe nodded in response, even though nobody was there to see her response. She felt herself, waking from the dregs of her sleep a little more.
それじゃあ花田くん、例の件を報告して。
Alright, Hanada-kun, report on the incident.
はい。
Roger.
例の君吉家の祖母アキですが、
It's about the grandmother of the Kimiyoshi family, Aki.
やはりこの数日誰も目撃した者がいないそうです。
Apparently nobody has seen her for the past few days. Detective Hanada pointed to a photo of an old woman attached to the whiteboard with a magnet as he read his report aloud. On Chief Inspector Manai's orders, he asked around at the places Aki Kimiyoshi visited on a daily basis.
つまり家に閉じこもっている。
In other words, you're saying she's confined at home?
いえ、それがどうも変なんです。
No, that sounds very unusual.
実は一昨日、宅配便の配達員が君吉家を訪れたそうなんですが、家の中は異常にしんと静まり返っていたと。
Actually, a delivery man visited the Kimiyoshi house the day before yesterday and said that the house was unusually quiet. That delivery man had apparently visited the Kimiyoshi house a few days prior as well, when it was littered with those eerie charms and talismans. And during that visit, he was clearly able to hear the old woman chanting prayers from the back room.
まじないをやめたってことですかね。
Does that mean she gave up on the prayers?
あるいは体調を崩しているとか。
No, or maybe her health is deteriorating.
それ以外の可能性も考えた方がいいかもしれませんが。
It might be better if we consider other possibilities.
その理由は
What do you mean by that? Detective Hanada turned toward Chief Inspector Manai, feeling a little lost, noticing that she urged him to continue with a nod.
実は土曜日の晩です。
Actually, on Saturday night,
君吉家の2つ隣の家の受験生が車のエンジン音を聞いたそうです。
two students from the house next door heard the sound of a car starting.
その時聞いていた深夜ラジオの内容から推測して、だいたい午前2時頃だったと。
Based on the contents of the late night radio they were listening to at the time, it was around 2 in the morning.
それで
So,
君吉当時の所有する車は少し離れた場所の駐車場に置いてあるのですが、
the car owned by Toji Kimiyoshi was spotted at a parking lot some distance away.
先月ひなみ沢へ里帰りに行った後、近くのガソリンスタンドで洗車を行ったとの証言があります。
But last month, the car was witnessed going through a car wash at a nearby gas station on their way back from visiting family in Hinamizawa.
にもかかわらず私が見たところ、タイヤ近くのボディ裏には草混じりの泥がびっしりとついていました。
Even so, I was able to find traces of grassy mud on the back of the car near the tires.
ほう。
Oh?
ということは、ここ最近にどこか山道のあるところへ出かけたということになりますな。
So you're saying he drove down a rural mountain road recently, huh? No. Oishi-san let out a contagious laugh as he looked over the materials at hand. As Detective Hanada had said, the traces of dried mud were clearly visible in a photo submitted for evidence.
そこで君吉当時に先日任意で聞き込みを行いました。
So, I casually asked Toji Kimiyoshi about it the other day.
彼は日曜日、岐阜県の山に出かけていたことにつきましてはあっさり認めました。
It wasn't long before I confirmed that he traveled to the mountains of Gifu Prefecture on Sunday.
何でも沢釣りに行ったとのことです。
He claimed he was out fishing.
沢釣りね。
Fishing, huh?
それでうまく誘導して車の後部トランクを開けさせたところ、
Then he calmly led me to the rear of his car and opened the trunk.
確かに中には彼の証言通り釣り道具一式と、あと魚の匂いが残っていました。
And just as he claimed, I noticed fishing tools and the distinct aroma of fish inside the trunk.
ただ、
However,
ただ
however,
念のため彼の職場の何人かにも確認したのですが、当時の趣味が釣りだという話は皆初耳だったそうです。
I asked around at his workplace just in case, and when I mentioned he had a hobby of fishing, they all acted like it was the first they'd heard of it.
それに彼の釣り道具のルアーを自分で見て確かめたのですが、
Plus, I examined his fishing lures myself,
明らかに海用でした。
and they were clearly intended for deep sea fishing. After saying that, Detective Hanada dropped 2 lures on the desk. They didn't look so different at first glance, but the one labeled for river fishing was clearly a little smaller.
私事で恐縮ですが、実は私も釣りが趣味なものですから。
Sorry for bringing up my private affairs, but I actually enjoy fishing in my free time.
いくら初心者とはいえ、この程度の間違いをして、しかも何匹か釣り上げてきたというのは、ちょっと信じられませんね。
Only the most inexperienced of beginners would make this sort of mistake. And what's more, I can't believe he actually caught anything like this.
はほ
Ho ho!
ちなみに花田刑事は結構いける方なんですか？
By the way, Detective Hanada, are you any good at fishing?
まあ、そこそこには。
Well, somewhat.
妻は川魚が好物で、結果次第でご機嫌が上下するものですから、結構研究に研究を重ねたものです。
My wife enjoys river fish, and her mood rises and falls based on my results. So I try to do a lot of research.
はい、のろけ話はその辺で。
Yeah, enough of the love story.
早い話が偽装の可能性が高いということね。
So you're saying there's a high probability that the suspect was being duplicitous? Duplicitous?
花田くん。
Duplicitous. Right, Hanada-kun?
ええ、そうです。
Yes, that's right.
なるほどね。
I see.
となるとまずいですよ大石さん。
If that's the case, this is bad, Oishi-san. Aki Kimiyoshi's disappearance, the late-night engine sounds, the remnants of mountain driving, and duplicitous behavior on top of it all. If we follow that train of logic to its conclusion, we're already too late.
君吉当時にもう少し揺さぶりをかけてみますか？
Should we shake some more info out of Toji Kimiyoshi?
いや、それはまだ早いと思います。
No, I think it's still too early for that.
普段から引きこもりがちと聞きましたから、いると白を切られてしまえば踏み込めません。
I've heard the mother's essentially a recluse, so if he feigned ignorance and claimed she was home, we wouldn't be able to get in.
捜査令状を取るとしても、確実な証拠を抑えたわけではありませんし。
Even if we were issued a search warrant, we don't have enough evidence.
でしょうな。
I suppose.
それに彼は主犯ではなく共犯ということも考えられます。
Besides, it's possible that he's not the main culprit and only an accomplice.
その場合、主犯の人物に口封じでもされる可能性がありますよ。
In that case, there's a possibility that he's been pressured by the main culprit to keep quiet. Chief Inspector Manai rested her chin on her hands and closed her eyes for a while. Then once she collected her thoughts, she opened her eyes again and turned to Detective Hanada.
君吉当時はしばらく泳がせておきましょう。
Let's leave Toji Kimiyoshi alone for the time being.
その代わり、彼が沢釣りに行ったという山に捜査員を派遣します。
Instead, we should dispatch an investigator to the mountains where he went fishing.
理由は、失踪した疑いのある君吉明の捜索。
Our justification will be investigating the suspected disappearance of Aki Kimiyoshi.
花田くん、山村課長に行って、一家から何人か借りてきてくれる？
Hanada-kun, can you ask Section Chief Yamamura if we can borrow some manpower from the department?
わかりました。
Understood.
岐阜県警さんと沢口署さんには所長から連絡してもらって了解を取っておいてね。
We need the chief to contact Gifu Prefectural Police Headquarters and Sawaguchi Station and request their consent on this investigation.
あと県警本部に連絡して鑑識の手配をお願い。
Then, we'll need to get the main office to send a forensic team.
捜査開始まで時間はかかっちゃうけど、後々のことを考えれば仕方ないわ。
It'll take some time to get this investigation set up, but can't be helped because it's our best course of action.
了解です。
Roger. Detective Hanada quickly rose from his seat and ran out of the room.
私たちも手伝いましょうか。
Would you like us to help as well?
山の捜索なら人数は多い方がいいと思いますので。
If you're searching out in the mountains, it would be better to have as many people as possible.
あ、いえ。
No.
赤坂警視と大石さんには別のことを緊急でお願いしたいのですが、よろしいでしょうか。
Inspector Akasuka, Oishi-san, there's another matter I urgently need your support on, if you don't mind.
別のこと？はて。
Another matter? What is it?
これです。
This. As she said that, Chief Inspector Manai removed a palm-sized pink case from her inside pocket. She opened the lid, revealing packages containing unusually colored capsules.
これは？
What is that?
君吉夏美が以前携帯していたものです。
Natsumi Kimiyoshi was carrying this earlier.
返そうと思って今日までつい機会を逸していたのですが。
I was planning to return it, but I haven't had the opportunity.
風邪薬かなんかですかね。
Is this cold medicine or something?
食欲のなくなりそうな色のカプセルですな。
The color on these capsules is making me lose my appetite.
印字の記号から各メーカーに問い合わせてみたのですが、どれも該当なし。
I tried asking the major drug manufacturers about the printed markings, but they didn't match anything.
法定外の薬の可能性がありますね。
There's a chance these aren't legal drugs. Normally, prescription drugs contain markings to identify the name and manufacturer of the drug. Failing to do so indicated that these were unregulated drugs, so their domestic use should be severely restricted.
薬の成分については岐阜県警の松岡君に調べてもらっています。
I asked Matsuoka-kun from the Gifu Prefectural Police Department to investigate the ingredients of the medicine.
彼はこの手の分析が得意なので。
He's particularly proficient at this sort of analysis.
で、お二人には佐伯総合病院で君吉夏美の通院歴を確認していただきたいのです。
And I would appreciate if the two of you could confirm Natsumi Kimiyoshi's hospitalization history at Saiki General Hospital.
なるほど。
I see.
この薬はそこで処方されたものだと。
Was this medicine prescribed there?
いえ、まだそこまでは。
No, I haven't found out that much yet.
ただ、彼女の住む町で大きな病院は佐伯総合病院だけです。
However, Saiki General Hospital is the only big hospital in the area she lives.
ですから、これを入手する方法として一番可能性が高いのはそこではないかと。
So that's probably the most likely place she got it from.
まあ確かに。
Yeah, that makes sense.
小さな院ではリスクとコストのことを考えても法定外の薬を扱うとはちょっと考えにくいですからね。
It's hard to imagine she got it from a smaller clinic, considering the costs and risks of dealing with illegal medication.
それにこの薬、
Also, about this medicine.
例の畠山家で見つけてきたカプセルと形状と色が似ているのです。
The shape and color seem to match the capsule we found at the Hatakama residence.
これを見てください。
Please take a look. After saying that, Chief Inspector Manai pointed to a picture of the capsule she found the other day.
おほう。
Oh ho!
言われてみれば似ていますね。
Now that you mention it, they do look similar.
こんな派手な色、薬向きじゃないと思っていましたが。
I wouldn't expect prescription drugs to use such flashy colors.
単なる偶然の一致かもしれませんが、念のため君吉夏美の他に畠山家の家族全員の通院歴も調べてもらえたら助かります。
It may just be a coincidence, but just in case, it would be helpful if you could verify the hospitalization history of the entire Hatakama family while you investigate Natsumi Kimiyoshi's history.
捜査令状は取ってありますので、今度は刑事として対応してください。
We have a search warrant, so please identify yourselves as detectives this time. You fuck ups.
お心遣い 助かります。
I appreciate your support. She's probably alluding to our rash behavior last time that caused our cover story about being publishers to fall apart. I'm surprised. Didn't take her as one to hold a grudge.
本来なら私が直接行くつもりだったのですが、今日までに例の衝殺事件の報告書をあげなければいけませんので。
I'd planned to handle this directly, but I need to write a report on the recent burning incident.
お願いできますでしょうか。
Can you do me this favor?
もちろんです。
Of course.
早速行きましょうか。
Let's head out immediately, Oishi-san.
ええ
Yes.
それじゃあともいちゃん、今日のご祝儀に吉報を期待しててくださいな。
Alright, Tomo-chan, look forward to good news later today. Consider it my gift to you.
ご祝儀？
Gift?
意味がわかりませんよ。ま
Can't,
ったく。
can't say I understand where you're going with that. Couldn't help but chuckle upon seeing Chief Inspector Manai's astonished face. Anyway, Psyche General Hospital, huh? Hopefully some useful information will be hiding there.
それじゃあ藤田君、報告を聞きましょうか。
Well then, Fujita-kun, let's see your report. After Akasuka and Oishi left the room, Tomoe's expression returned to normal as she turned toward Fujita. Having not said a word until then, he pulled out the report hidden under his desk and handed it to Tomoe with a painful expression.
Nani?
What?
よろしかったのですか。
Is this alright?
花田や赤坂警視たちにこのことをお知らせしなくても。
Keeping this information from Hanada, Inspector Akasuka, and the others?
聞かせたくなかったのよ。
I'd rather they not hear it.
あの二人にはまだね。
At least for those two. Not yet. Tomoe replied with a sigh as she turned the cover of the report.
花田君ってこの前娘さんが誕生したばかりでしょ。
Hanada-kun's daughter was just born, right?
赤坂警視にも娘さんがいる。
And Inspector Akasuka has a daughter of his own?
まだ確定じゃない状況で安易に話すのもどうかと思ったしね。
We haven't finalized the details yet, so I think it would be difficult to discuss it.
でももうほぼ確定と言って差し支えないと思います。
But I don't think it'd be wrong to say the details are all but confirmed by this point. Then Tomoe continued flipping through the pages, looking over the investigation photos. Fujita had borrowed it from the forensics team. Showed the interior of the Hatakeyama household after the incident, the room of the eldest son, Kentaro. It was probably a shooting from close range, with huge bloodstains spread across the wall, as if from an explosion. In contrast with their visit yesterday, the pictures clearly illustrated the former vestiges of life in the house. Tomoe suddenly frowned while looking at the muddy color of the blood, despite thinking she could already be used to this.
俺にはまだ信じられません。
I still can't believe it.
それに今回ばかりは南井さんの推理が外れてくれと本気
Seriously,
で考えていました。
seriously, Minai-san, I thought your hunch was completely off base this time.
そっか。
I see.
私もね、実は同じ。
Actually, I feel the same way.
今でもまだ私の勝手な想像だったらなって期待しちゃってる。
Even now, I had hoped it was all my imagination.
でも現実は見ないとね。
But the reality is clear as day. As she said that, Tomoe arranged the photos on the desk according to the tags attached to them. Out in front was a photo of the wall in Kentaro's room that she had taken earlier, and one of the wall inside Masao and his wife's room.
最初に違和感を持ったのはこの血の飛び散り方を見たときね。
I first got the impression something was off when I saw the way this blood was scattered.
そして実際に見に行ってもしかしたらがおそらくになった。
And after closer examination, that went from a maybe to probably. Tomoe pointed to the bloodstains on the wall of Kentaro's room.
ライフルを射撃で構えるときは普通こう肩の高さで狙いをつける。
When firing a rifle, the shooter normally holds the gun at shoulder height.
だから銃弾はその本人の身長に見合ったものになる。
So the position of the bullet would roughly correspond to the person's height.
ええ。
Right.
ただ身長の低い対象物を至近距離から撃つときは違うわよね。
However, it's not like that if you're shooting a low object at close range, right?
ほとんどの大人の場合は 立ったまま銃口を下に向けて引き金を引く。
Most adults would stand still and point the muzzle down as they pull the trigger.
だとしたら
In that case, of course, the bullet would have gone right over Kentaro's head otherwise.
ケンタロウは至近距離から銃弾を頭部に受けて即死した。
But Kentaro had received a bullet to the head from close range and died immediately.
だったら血痕が壁に付着するのは変。
In that case, it's strange for the bloodstain to be scattered across the wall.
見下ろす姿勢から発射すれば普通なら血痕は床に広がるはず。
If the gun was fired from a downward angle, it would make more sense for the bloodstains to be spread across the floor.
でも血痕も銃弾も壁にあったということは
But the bloodstains and the bullet were found on the wall.
ライフルが構えられた高さはほぼケンタロウと同じということになる。
So the rifle was roughly held at Kentaro's height.
ええ、
Yes.
鑑識も同じ見解でした。
The forensics team had the same opinion.
それにもう一つ
And another thing,
マサオはライフルを喉に押し当てて自殺を図ったとのことだけど
about the theory that Masao committed suicide by holding the rifle to his throat.
ライフルの向きを考えると別の見方もある。
Based on the direction of the rifle, there's another possibility.
つまりマサオよりも身長の低い犯人が見上げる姿勢からライフルを発射した。
In other words, a culprit much shorter than Masao fired the rifle at an upward angle.
ではやはり本当の犯人は
In that
彼女
case,
ということですか。
in that case, the real culprit is her?
ええ、そう。
Yes, exactly.
現時点で最も怪しいのは
At the moment, the most likely suspect is
長女の畠山葵よ。
the daughter, Aoi Hatakeyama. Just ends abruptly. The daughter! Big stretch. Alright, investigation heating up. What page of saves are we on? Nice. Perfect. Alright. That's gonna do it. Lots of reading. Solid 3 hours of reading. Without any breaks. Mouth yapping for 3 hours. Cool. Let's see. I know, I think I said this earlier a couple days ago or so, but it was actually funny. Last Saturday, I said during Higurashi that there would not be Higurashi reading next Saturday, which would be this upcoming Saturday because of plans. And then I said, unless those plans get canceled, on the off chance that happens, lo and behold, the next day, the plans did get canceled probably because of weather and scheduling conflicts, but weather mostly. So there will be streams on Saturday, it seems. So we'll probably be reading Higurashi more on Saturday, along with something else as well, probably as we do normally on Saturdays. So that won't be missed. Tomorrow should be stream, most likely gonna be Yakuza Kiwami 2. I'm not dead set on finishing Yakuza. I'm not like gonna press myself too much to try to finish that before Death Stranding 2 comes out. But if I do finish Yakuza Kiwami 2 before Death Stranding 2 comes out, it would be good. But I'm not gonna like press myself to do it. But yeah, probably Yakuza Kiwami 2 for tomorrow. So tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Have a nice rest of your night. Back tomorrow night. Have a great Wednesday. Until then.